Good afternoon and welcome to the commentary ups coverage of the Premier League clash between Tottenham Hotspur and Newcastle United. I'm your alternative host, Russ Vernon, and standing by for us to bring you all the action that everyone is looking for with the Premier League game today and with the team news as well. First, we've got Paul James, who's on Kirkcom's. Well, first of all, giving you the headline team news with changes of how many teams each side have made. Is over to your match commentator, Chris Coughlin.
Thank you very much, Russ. For Tottenham, there are 5 changes to the 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford. Then it's a back three of Davinson Sanchez, Eric Dyer, and Clement Longley. Emerson Royale, Oliver Skip, Rodrigo Bentancur, Yves Bissouma, and Ryan Sessegnon make up the midfield 5, with Harry Kane and Heung-min Son up top. In total, it's Sanchez, Longley, Skip, Royale, and Sessegnon in for Christian Romero, Ben Davis, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who was not even in the squad today, Matt Doherty, and Ivan Perisic. The subs for Tottenham are Fraser Forster, Japhet Tanganga, Ben Davis, Matt Doherty, Jed Spence, Harvey White, Ivan Perisic, Brian Heel, and Lucas Moura. For Newcastle, just the one change from the 1-0 win over Everton also on Wednesday. That sees Joe Willock come in for Josh Murphy. And the Toon Army line up as follows. Nick Pope in goal, the captain Kieran Trippier at right back, centre-back partnership of Fabian Schär and Sven Botman, with Dan Burn at left back. A midfield 3, it looks like, of Bruno Guimaraes, Sean Longstaff, and Joe Willock. That means Joe Linton has pushed forward into a more attacking role than we have seen him recently, alongside Callum Wilson and the man of the moment, Miguel Almiron. The substitutes for Newcastle, Loris Karius, Jamal Lascelles, John Joe Shelvey, Jamal Lewis, Matt Targett, Javier Manquillo, Chris Wood, Ryan Fraser, and Josh Murphy.
Thank you very much there, Chris. And we'll just fetch in Paul James now. And Paul, very good afternoon to you, my friend. Hopefully you're doing okay. Some earlier results to go through, and then we'll just touch on the game. So Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0, Leeds United 2, Fulham 3, Southampton 1, Arsenal 1, and Wolves 0, Leicester City 4. So Paul, looking at this game then, Tottenham going fairly well, Reece in the league so far. Newcastle with a win today, looking at the table ahead of kick-off in this game. Newcastle with a win can go into the top 4 on goal difference. What a job Eddie Howe's done in Newcastle, Paul, and how do you think this game's going to go today, my friend?
Well, yeah, it's an absolute wonderful job he's done at Newcastle. I mean, they are defensively, they are the only team to concede less than 10 goals this season. 9 they've actually conceded. Nick Pope in goal has got equal clean sheets with Ederson. And of course, as Chris mentioned, Miguel Almiron, 5 goals this season as well. His performance has been a lot better than in previous seasons. He's already scored more this season than he's scored in any of his previous seasons in the Premier League. Spurs, I think they definitely need a win. It's a statement by Antonio Conte making these 5 changes. Højbjerg missing out completely. But this is not going to be an easy game for Tottenham. They've got firepower. They've got Son. They've got Kane. I think between the two of them, they have. They basically between the two of them, they have 5 goals against Newcastle in the last 5 league games. But given that, this is going to be a very difficult game for Spurs today, and as much as they need a win themselves to cement their place in top 4, I wouldn't be surprised to see a shock today. I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcastle win this game and move into the top 4.
Yes, absolutely, Paul. Newcastle playing some really good stuff under Eddie Howe. If you just look at the both teams then, Paul, which Chris brought to our listeners a few moments ago to everyone listening here on the Commentary Hub this afternoon. You may be listening on Commentary Hub 2, Storm FM or JB Sports, or on our Twitch channel as well. And then if you look at the bench, I've got to say, looking at both benches, Tottenham's bench is possibly just a tad stronger than Newcastle's.
For sure.
But in the sides today, the for Newcastle with Wilson up front. He's been doing well. Almiron doing well as well. If I were to push you, Paul, for a score prediction this afternoon, what would you say? What do you reckon the score is going to be come the end of this match at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
The last time I predicted a score, Ross, it didn't go down too well. I'm very tempted to just say 0-0. But what I will say is I think Newcastle could win 2-1.
So 2-1 there for Newcastle United. Looking at the teams myself, I'm probably going to say Newcastle win as well, and maybe just edge it by a goal to nil in this game. So that's going to be a very interesting stuff. We'll hear from Paul again throughout the afternoon, throughout on commentary. This afternoon he's now getting ready to be alongside Chris for some action in the first half between Tottenham and Newcastle United. You're listening to the commentary with the home of alternative commentary with the commentary of Tottenham Hotspur against Newcastle United in the Premier League. We're waiting to see whether Leeds United could follow Aston Villa in pulling the trigger in sacking Jesse Marsh. The were calls for the Leeds United boss to be sacked during their game with Fulham this afternoon. And there also some chance of sack the board as well. With that said, and without any further ado, it's time for me to hand over to your match commentary team, Paul James. But first, very good afternoon once again to Chris Coughlin.
Thank you very much, Russ, and welcome to alternative commentary from the commentary hub from Tottenham Hotspur against Newcastle United today at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I'll just take you through the teams again. There's 5 changes for Spurs from their 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford on Wednesday. In come Davinson Sanchez, Clement Lenglet, Oliver Skipp, Emerson Royal and Ryan Sessegnon, and then out go Christian Romero, Ben Davis, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Matt Doherty and Ivan Perisic. So Spurs line up 3-5-2, as is Antonio Conte's traditional style. Hugo Lloris, the captain, in goal. A back three of Sanchez, Eric Dyer and Lenglet. A midfield 5, if you like, of Emerson Royal, Oliver Skipp, Rodrigo Bentancur, Yves Bissouma and Ryan Sessegnon, with Heung-min Son and Harry Kane up top. Substitutes for Tottenham: Fraser Forster, Japhet Tanganga, Ben Davis, Matt Doherty, Jed Spence, Harvey White, Ivan Perisic, Ryan Hissmora. For Newcastle, it's only one change from the win over Everton in the week. Joe Willock coming in for Jacob Murphy. And Newcastle line up with Nick Pope in goal, Kieran Trippier, the captain, at right back, Fabian Schär and Sven Botman, the 2 centre-backs, with Dan Burn at left back, Bruno Guimaraes, Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock in the midfield, with Miguel Almiron, Joe Linton and Callum Wilson forming the front line. And on the bench for Newcastle, Loris Karius, the former Liverpool goalkeeper, Jamal Lascelles, John Joe Shelby, Jamal Lewis, Matt Targett, Javier Manquillo, Chris Wood, Ryan Fraser and Jacob Murphy. We're just seeing the teams in their pre-match huddles before we and I'm joined today by Paul James. Paul, it's a big game for both in many respects, isn't it? Tottenham 5 points off Arsenal going into the game, but of course Arsenal dropped points at Southampton earlier on today, whereas for Newcastle a win would take them into the top 4.
Yeah, this is a massive game actually for both teams. I think Tottenham are going to be wanting to be getting revenge for their recent defeat at Old Trafford. The performance was poor. It was very unlike Tottenham's performances in general this season. Newcastle they've got a chance to go into the top 4 themselves with a win. I just feel, looking at the benches, there's a significant weakness for Newcastle United in the forward position. They have one forward on the bench, really, Chris Wood. Now, he's only got 2 goals in 27 games, so the benches may well play a part today as well.
Absolutely. We've just gone underway. We're about 15 seconds or so into the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Nick Pope sends it long. Newcastle kicking from left to right in this first half. Tottenham kicking from right to left. Joe Linton out now to Kieran Trippier, who's created 26 big chances in the Premier League this season. He has had a fantastic start to the campaign, but he's given the ball away there to Rodrigo Bentancur. Heung-min Son through the middle half for Tottenham. Trippier looking to track back. Son still going on the left-hand side of the penalty area. Gets a shot away, and it's well collected in the end by Nick Pope. Just had to pat it down and then claim it at the second opportunity. Rolls it out to Dan Burn on the left-hand side. But nearly shot of intent from Tottenham and Heung-min Son, for whom it's been slow start to the campaign, it has to be said. Only 3 goals in the Premier League, and they all came in the 6-2 win against Leicester. Son coming off the bench in that game in the second half. Newcastle with the Fabian Schär now spreading it out to Dan Burn, looking to face forward. Finds Joe Willock, fronted up by Davinson Sanchez, and it's going to go out for a Newcastle off the halfway line.
Just looks like they stood off Son a little bit there, allowed him to come forward, made it a little bit easy for him. I don't think it's ever a good idea to stand off a player like Son.
No, absolutely not. not with Heung-min Son's ability. Newcastle playing the ball forward now, and it's dealt with by Longley, the left-sided centre-back of the 3 today. It's interesting as well seeing, looking on the face of it, Joe Linton 3 if you like, although he has played such a massive role for Newcastle ever since he moved into that midfield 3. But there are 3 other central midfielders out there today, so it'll be very interesting to see if it's maybe a sort of diamond as such from Newcastle. But Dan Burn exchanging passes with Joe Willock there, and now square to Bruno Guimaraes, wonderfully technical midfielder, spreading it out wide to Miguel Almiron. Trippier back to Almiron, cutting inside from the right to the left. Guimaraes, Longstaff now. Trippier back into Almiron, who just about keeps the ball away from Bentancur, but now it's been lost by Bruno Guimaraes. Eric Dyer forward to Kane. That's a lovely ball looking for Emerson Royal. Chance here for Tottenham. And now it's Heung-min Son, his right foot gets the shot away, and it's curled just wide. Good effort there from Heung-min Son after Newcastle gave away possession, but another warning sign early on.
Yeah, there's definitely a statement of intent by Tottenham here. Again, Newcastle just stand off them a little bit. They sort of invite it. And this shot by Son, really close. It's not a million miles away, just kind of clips the top of the net there. He looks up for it. Newcastle have to be very careful.
It was, in fact, a lot closer than it might have looked on first viewing. It literally lands on the roof of the net from Heung-min Son. A wonderful effort with his right foot. That's one from both feet. Now from the South Korean, who is so good with both feet, of course. He scored some wonderful goals in his Tottenham career. Despite his slow start to the season, he's an ever-present threat, really, for Tottenham Hotspur. Just seeing Eddie Howe there. The coach has done so well since taking over at Newcastle as well, since just after the takeover last year. But you were saying there about Heung-min Son's ability with both feet, Paul.
Yeah, he's an incredible talent, absolutely incredible talent. And I think the key to Spurs...
The ball forward now, and there's potentially a chance for Joel Linton. He's gone down. No penalty given. Almiron with the shot is deflected wide. And for Newcastle's first foray forward, it will be checked here. Joel Linton got in behind on the right-hand side. I was about to say, the ball was just in midfield. It was a lovely ping forward by Fabian Schär. Joel Linton was onside. Got in behind Emerson Royal, who appeared to tangle Linton. The ball then came back to Almiron and got a shot away. But it'd be very interesting to see what the outcome of this is. It doesn't look to be too much in it on second viewing, but it was perhaps clumsy for Emerson Royal, if nothing else.
Yeah, it actually looks like, though, from what I can see, that Joel Linton moves his leg across as well. So, I mean, I can't see this being given. Yeah, I don't see this being given. I'll be surprised.
No. It hasn't indeed, and Newcastle have got on with the play. It's come back to Almiron from Trippier's corners towards the far post. It's been put back across by Dan Burn, and it's been cleared away by Eric Dyer. Joel Linton just about takes it under control, and Newcastle have it now with Sven Botman, who's going to give it all the way back to Nick Pope. But after such an enthusiastic start from Tottenham in terms of the efforts going forward, it's a sign from Newcastle that they're not just here to make up the numbers. They're here to really get in amongst the action. Antonio Conte there noticing the threat that Newcastle have on the break, and it was it was a long ball from deep in midfield from Fabian Schär that caused the problem. And Joe Linton has been so effective in midfield for Newcastle recently, but he's shown again what he can do going forward.
Absolutely, it was a nice ball as well. Caught Tottenham out a little bit, and in the end they were quite lucky. But they were caught out a little bit there with Tottenham, and it reminded me a little bit of the Manchester United game. It seems that they can be easily caught out with the ball over the top.
Yeah, it was uncharacteristically poor from Tottenham defensively at Old Trafford. United getting over 20 shots away against an Antonio Conte side, which is unheard of, really. It's in the midfield at the moment with Bruno Guimaraes and now Joe Linton on the far side. Bruno Guimaraes again looking to reverse the play and spread it out to Miguel Almiron on the right. He's combining well with Trippier. Trippier now looking infield to Longstaff, who's burst to the penalty area and got a corner off the Clement Longley, the French international centre-back. But again, Newcastle have really grown into this game early on. Sean Longstaff with the burst forward there. Only one goal for him so far this season in the 4-1 win away to Fulham. How well Fulham have responded from that setback, by the way. But nevertheless, it's a corner kick to Newcastle on the right-hand side. Kieran Trippier with the outswinger with his right foot. It's towards the far post. It's put back in there. Lloris will come to claim it and punches it away, but it's still alive. Chance maybe for Willock. It's dealt with really well by Rodrigo Bentancur, and Tottenham will look to clean up. Bentancur just about gets it back to Sanchez, and Tottenham making a bit of a meal of this. Bentancur now out to Royale, flicks over the corner. Joe Linton recollects for Newcastle. Bruno Guimaraes back to Joe Linton. A bit of a deeper role at the moment. Back to Longstaff. He's going to give it back to Nick Pope. Newcastle have been much improved defensively. Only one defeat in League and Cup this season. That came in dramatic circumstances at Anfield, the 98th minute of that game. What a crazy game it was as well. But they've done so well. Gone into some very difficult fixtures. Old Trafford, for example, where they got a 0-0 draw. Some good results at home as well, and the 3-3 against City just show what they can do going forward, because there wasn't much defending going on in that game.
Yeah, they've been defensively brilliant. They've conceded less goals, I think, than anybody else in the league. And going forward, yeah, they've scored goals. I think they've got something like 11 goals in their last sort of 5 games. So they can put the ball in the net as well as keep it out.
Tottenham coming forward here. It's Heung-min Son again with his left foot, and it's high and wide this time. It's less from Son, but 3 efforts in the first 9 minutes from the South Korean. You wouldn't think he's only got 3 goals this season, but he did play a massive part in Tottenham's 5-1 success against Newcastle last season. That was a sign really what they are capable of when they're in full motion. Newcastle taking the lead that day as well, of course. Nick Pope restarts the play with a free kick, a goal kick rather, downfield. Kieran Trippier wins the flick on, and Almiron can't keep possession. And Ryan Sessegnon's won a throw in off Sean Longstaff, looking for options to get the play restarted for Tottenham Hotspur, where 9 minutes in on the commentary hub, where it's still Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Lloris's ball downfield is dealt with well by Fabian Schär, but Son was offside and the flag goes up, so it's a free kick for Newcastle on the halfway line. Trippier will look to take it, and it looks like they're going to send players forward now. Sven Botman and Fabian Schär making their way forward. So instead of a short free kick to get the play started, it's going to be a long delivery into the penalty area. Joe Linton accompanying Emerson Royale, the 2 Brazilians on the far left-hand side. Trippier now to take the free kick. It will make its way into the Tottenham penalty area. Joe Linton will collect, fronted up by Emerson Royale. Still with Joe Linton. Sean Longstaff, who will look to load it into the penalty area, and that's going to be double for Hugo Lloris, far ahead of Callum Wilson at the far post.
Yeah, he was the one, wasn't he? The only Spurs player I can say.
But a decent opportunity there for Newcastle really made the most of.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Chris.
Absolutely, Son's the only one. No, I was just saying Son's the only one really of any sort of threat for Tottenham so far. Harry Kane's been dropping very deep in the opening exchanges. Bruno Guimaraes, who's very deep for Newcastle at the moment, gives it back to Fabian Schär and headed forward by Eric Dyer. Yves Bissouma picks it up. Oliver Skip into Son and Kane. Now can Tottenham advance forward? Harry Kane through to Heung-min Son. He's onside. Heung-min Son. It's a good save by Nick Pope, and it's cleared away by Trippier. Pretty much from on the line, but by far and away Tottenham's best opening in this match. Harry Kane dropping deep to collect the ball of Oliver Skip, playing the ball through to his partner in crime, Heung-min Son. Tried to get the ball past Nick Pope, but it was a good outstretched hand that stopped the ball making its way towards the goal, and Kieran Trippier cleared from pretty much underneath the bar, because if it had more power on that from Heung-min Son, Tottenham would have had the lead.
Yeah, it was a super save actually. He narrowed the angle well. I think Son was in two minds whether to go round Pope or
I
whether to
was just
strike
about
it
to
first
say,
time.
was he in two minds? It appeared
Yeah.
that way. What the strike or the finish didn't really have conviction in it from Hyun-Min Son, which is maybe what you could label at, and perhaps a forward lacking a little bit of confidence, having only scored in one Premier League game this season, albeit he did get 3 in that game against Leicester. His only other 2 goals came in one match as well against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League, which has also put Spurs into a very good position in that competition, has to be said.
Yeah, I think though with somebody like Son's talent, I don't think that bad form or out of form, if you will last for long. He's incredibly talented. He's one of the players in the Premier League that just has everything in his game.
Absolutely. 4 shots for Son so far in this match. Miguel Almiron, the only other player, but you can see the intent early on from Son. He is a world-class player. I don't think there's any questioning that. And all players we see at the moment, like Mohamed Salah as well, of course, going through rather lean patches in front of goal. Newcastle playing it forward, but it's been cut out by Sessegnon. Can Spurs build again? Basuma back to Longley, now to Sanchez, being closed down by Joe Linton, but finds the forward pass to Harry Kane. And Sessegnon's on the left-hand side, plenty of space. Son's in the middle. Sessegnon will cut it back. It's just behind Royale, but the flag does now go up, I think, against Ryan Sessegnon. And it's poor, really, from the wing back, because when Harry Kane picked it up just inside the Newcastle half, there's really no need for Ryan Sessegnon to be offside there. He had acres of space on the left-hand side, and his cutback was poor in any instance, but didn't have to be offside in that situation at all. There was plenty of green grass for him to run into. But Eddie Howe, I think, will be concerned that a few gaps are opening up in his defence.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you about Sessegnon. He had a lot of space in front of him. Could have timed his run a lot better than that, and his pullback wasn't great. I am concerned looking at Newcastle early on as well, because they do look defensively, they look a little bit unstable, which hasn't been like them this season.
No, and it's testament to Eddie Howe. It's Newcastle's best start since 2011, 2012, when they had a very good season indeed, and they could well do this year as well. They're up and amongst the European places, which, given the funding at Newcastle now, I think is very much the aim, certainly in the short term, if nothing else. Trippier now back to Fabian Schär, who whips the ball forward. It's come through to Callum Wilson, in other words, bounced over his head, and Davinson Sanchez now gives it to Clement Longley, round the corner to Ryan Sessegnon. Bissouma back to Longley, and now Eric Dyer, the central of the 3 central defenders, to Bissouma, who hasn't really made an impact so far since joining from Brighton, but plays the ball to Harry Kane. It's gone back to Harry Kane from Oliver Skip, who's getting forward a little bit, but it's cleared away now by Newcastle. Eric Dyer picks up and finds Emerson Royale on the right-hand side. Lovely nutmeg to get away from Joe Willock. What will Royale do with this one? He looks for Sessegnon on the far side. Wing back to wing back. Sessegnon looking to take Trippier on the outside and trying to get the cross in. He managed to do so when it's Harry Kane. It's headed up in the air. Bruno Guimaraes away, only as far as Yves Bissouma will hit it, and hit it well over the bar after the chest and volley from Yves Bissouma. But again, good play from Tottenham. Utilise the wide areas, which they've got a little bit of joy from so far after the bright start from Newcastle as well. Came out to Yves Bissouma, the chest, and hit it on the volley, but it was never threatening Nick Pope between the sticks for Newcastle. 15 minutes gone. It's still Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 0. A rare start for Yves Bissouma as well, given that he hasn't made the biggest impact since joining from Brighton for around £25 million in the summer as an original fee. But when you've got the form of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who's not involved at all today, it's difficult for players like Yves Bissouma to kind of make their impact. Bissouma now to Rodrigo Bentancur. Longley. Eric Dyer. And he's under the ball, run under his feet, and he's under pressure from Callum Wilson. Just about recovers the ball, gives it to Davinson Sanchez, and Joe Linton closes down the Colombian. It's a throw-in for Tottenham, just past the parameter of their own 18-yard line. It's been a happy hunting ground as well for Spurs. 8 wins on home soil, their last 8 home results. It's been after a bit of life at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium after leaving White Hart Lane. They've made it very much a home now, and it is a magnificent footballing stadium. Not just football, of course, concert and the NFL there as well. So a multi-purpose stadium, but it's a wonderful arena nonetheless.
Oh yes,
Newcastle now
definitely
in
one of the
possession.
best in Europe.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? The stand behind the goal to the right-hand side as well. Looking, I think it's 18,000 as well that can house that, and that's just where Joe Willock has the ball now, competing with Davinson Sanchez. He's gone down, and there's no free kick given for the little shove from Davinson Sanchez, but the referee Jared Gillett says no. He's Basuma forward to Rodrigo Bantancourt. It's round the corner now, looking for Basuma, but he's not going to get there. Pope will come out and clear the ball downfield. No danger taken from the Newcastle keeper. Wilson now off to Miguel Almiron. Good tracking back from Bantancourt to win the ball back. Sessegnon forward to Harry Kane. Fabian Schär, he will, but he doesn't manage it, and Almiron clips it past Harry Kane. Goes down. No free kick given for the Paraguayan. Bentancur now to Basuma. Long layout to Basuma again, and Sessegnon on the left-hand side. Back to Clement Longley. Basuma can turn in midfield and drive forward, looking for options. Son was looking to make a run through the middle there, and that would have been on for Basuma perhaps, but there's going to be a throw-in to Tottenham, just level with the Newcastle penalty area. Oliver Skipp looking to get forward there, and it was dealt with by Sven Botman. It's his first Premier League start since January as well, Oliver Skipp, the Tottenham Academy graduate. High hopes for, albeit again, a similar case to Basuma, because the form of Bentancur and Højbjerg has been so good. It's been difficult for him to get in, and Bentancur is looking forward now for Skipp, who's getting forward a lot in these early exchanges. Perhaps because Bentancur and Basuma are occupying the defensive roles, if you like. It allows Oliver Skipp to maybe venture a bit further forward.
Yeah, it does. I think at this point they are defending very deep in Newcastle, and it's leaving space, I think, for Son to utilise, for Bentancur to utilise, and of course Sessegnon is getting a lot of joy down this near side. I think Newcastle they maybe just being defending a little bit deep and a little bit narrow at the moment.
We're just seeing in possession then, it almost looked like a bit of a back three from Newcastle as well. And Dan Burn tucking in, although in possession he's very much in the left-back role. That's the ball forward, looking for Callum Wilson. And the flag has gone up for offside against the England striker. I think he's rather down the pecking order in terms of the World Cup. But, given that we're hearing rumours of a provisional 55-man squad, Callum Wilson, I'm sure, would like to think he's had half a chance of getting into that from Gareth Southgate's thinking.
Well, Chris, we have a chance of getting in.
Yes, well, yeah, 55 players. I wasn't too bad in school. I wasn't that effective further forward, but at the back I was okay. As Newcastle get a corner, and they absolutely gifted it by Eric Dyer. That was absolutely remarkable. Very, very nearly an own goal from someone that is very much looking to go to the World Cup with England. Looked to whip it back towards Hugo Lloris, and it very nearly went into his own bottom corner. Lloris certainly wasn't expecting the weight on the pass, if nothing else, and Newcastle unexpectedly have a corner on this right-hand side. 20 minutes gone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 0. Kieran Trippier with the outswinging corner for Newcastle. The box is loaded as usual. Trippier looks to whip this one in. It's headed away by Dyer, who gave away that corner. Almiron looks to swing at it, and he will do his do again, and the volley is wildly wide from the Paraguayan, who's been in very good goal-scoring form. I would have liked to have got that on target, but it was an ambitious effort in any case.
Yeah, I think Dyer was very careless. You know what? He didn't even need to do it, really. He didn't need to play it back to Lloris. He wasn't under any pressure. I find that a little bit bizarre, but it has been the case, I think, with Spurs. Certainly with Manchester United. It's hardly surprising that he's replaced two of those back three, Conte.
Yes, and Antonio Conte teams, I think, it was against Arsenal, where Chelsea lost 3-0 back in 2016, when we really saw the birth of the Antonio Conte back three, and he's stuck with it ever since. And Real will now play the ball forward, looking for Sessegnon on this left-hand side. Is he going to keep it in? He is. And now we'll run at Trippier. Seeing a lot of defending to do in this first half. Sessegnon, he's done really well there. Trippier actually keeping away Ryan Sessegnon, looking to play the ball back to Longley. He'll chip it in towards Harry Kane. It's headed away at the far post by Fabian Schär. Runs on Sanchez's feet and now gives it to Eric Dyer. Longley. He's had the ball stolen off him by Almiron, but it's going to go out for a throw-in on halfway for Tottenham, so no danger for Clement Longley. But good defending there at the back from Sven Botman as well. Him and Schär forming a really good partnership, and he's been a really good signing since joining from Lille, and Newcastle win the ball back there, looking for the throw-in. I think that's going to be a Tottenham throw-in, but it did look to come off Rodrigo Bentancur, that. Eddie Howe certainly not happy that he didn't get the throw-in. His side now on the defending side of things, with Bentancur back to Longley. Back to Eric Dyer. No, passing back to Lloris on this occasion. Sanchez. Forward now for Skip. It's come through to Harry Kane. He'll look to play it around the corner, and Oliver Skip's going to get in behind here. He's got Hyun-Min Son for company. Emerson Royale as well. Oliver Skip back to Ryan Sessegnon. He's taken a touch, and his shot is put behind by Fabian Schär. Might well have been collected by Nick Pope, but Schär was taking no risks there because I think Royale was coming in behind him as well. It wasn't the most ferocious in the effort in the world from Ryan Sessegnon, but needed dealing with by the Swiss international, because as it turned out, Royale may well have ended up getting in on the end of that. It's going to be Hyun-Min Son to take a corner on Tottenham's left-hand side, an in-swinging right footer. There's plenty in the box. Longley making his way in there as well. He's a bit of a battle with Sven Botman at the far post. Hyun-Min Son with his left arm raised. It will come in now with his right foot. It's an in-swinger. Nick Pope deals with it. It's loose, however. Oliver Skip will collect. And he'll put it low back in first time. Bentancur with the shot. It's blocked. Joe Linton and Eric Dyer now, and that's blocked again. Will it go out for a corner? Harry Kane's looking to try and shovel it behind, but it's only a throw-in because that was good defending in the end by Dan Burn on the far side. But the first bit of panic in the box, really, from a Newcastle perspective. Efforts for Rodrigo Bentancur and Eric Dyer coming in there, but both well blocked. It's now back with Dyer on halfway as Tottenham look to reset, and Dyer more calmly on this occasion back to Hugo Lloris. He'll play it forward now, looking for Ryan Sessegnon. He'll keep it in, and Hyun-Min Son, that's really good strength from Son. And the referee has given a free kick. I just thought that looked like good strength from Hyun-Min Son to hold off Kieran Trippier.
Yeah, they didn't look much in that, did there? It's and I was always under the impression this season that the referees were supposed to let a lot of this physical stuff go, and it didn't look anything there at all. Looking at it on the replay again,
if anything, it looked like Kieran Trippier just got caught underneath the ball. Really, it didn't. It certainly wasn't aggressive from Son. It was just the strength that he has over Kieran Trippier. But nevertheless, Newcastle have another free kick about 5 yards or so inside the Tottenham half. It'll be Kieran Trippier to take. It's a similar one to earlier on in the half, where it looks like he'll send it towards the penalty area. He's got Bruno Guimaraes for company, but it will be put towards the penalty area by Trippier. It's flicked on, and Callum Wilson perhaps with the volley. It's looping up in the air, and it'll count as a shot on target. Hugo Lloris claims it. Callum Wilson's down inside the penalty area. I wonder if that might be something that could get looked at. Bruno Guimaraes will put it out of play. But this will be very interesting to see what happened to Callum Wilson here, because he got the shot away. Left foot volley just looped into the arms of Hugo Lloris. But very interesting to see if he was caught. It's one of them, isn't it? Because he takes the shot. It's not an intention of a foul from Longley. And if anything, it's a case of Callum Wilson almost kicking Longley and coming off the worst.
I think that's exactly what happened, to be honest, Chris. Because when he swings at that, he catches the studs of the defender there. And it obviously very painful. But I wouldn't consider that really to be a foul. If it was the other way around and it was a defender, making contact with him while trying to clear the ball, maybe. But that situation, I think, is more a case of he just catches the stud of the defender.
Football, of course, is a contact sport, as we all know. It might not seem it at times, but it is absolutely the case. As the ball forward, looking for Callum Wilson, but to go all the way through to Hugo Lloris. Bit of a hug almost from Wilson. I don't think he was too happy with Lloris there for whatever reason, but Lloris restarts the play and gives it to Longley. Basuma back to Clement Longley. Now square to Eric Dyer. Look to assess his options. Doesn't look like too much going on ahead of him, so we give it short to Yves Bissouma. Nice turn from the former Brighton man. Bentancur turns back. He's got Guimaraes for company, the two South Americans. Back to Sanchez, another South American. Dyer forward to Skip. Bentancur. Sanchez again. Will send it long and looking for some, but again, it's out of play. That was a really good press from Newcastle, actually, to deny Tottenham any outlets into the midfield. Joelinton part of that press, and again, I think even though we might be seeing him in a slightly more forward role today, we're not seeing any less effort and application from him. And I think I speak for a lot of people involved with the game of football that his transformation under Eddie Howe is one of the more remarkable things that we've seen in the Premier League recently. Obviously, a big money sign from Hoffenheim for Newcastle. It never really worked out for him as a central striker, but as a midfielder, he's so effective in this Newcastle team.
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth, Chris, actually. I was just going to say that. He's been, since Eddie Howe's taken over, he's been absolutely a complete transformation, in my opinion. Been outstanding.
He really has. In midfield now with Bissouma. Has to go backwards again because Newcastle are doing really well to cut off the passing angles. But that's a ball forward looking for Heung-min Son. Pope will come out and has to clear it away because the ball wasn't going to make it into the penalty area. Comes down with snow on it. Emerson Royale wins that header. Harry Kane. Son might have a shot himself. Comes out to Bentancur. Gets the ball through the legs of Willock. It's a really good tackle actually from Joelinton because Royale looks set to get a cross in, but his fellow Brazilian came back to track back and track well. And the ball forward from Skip is cut out by Dan Burn at left back. Joelinton into Sven Botman into the midfield now for Almiron. Seeing him a bit deeper than recently, but of course he'll have to work defensively. It's a lovely ball out to Kieran Trippier. Almiron making the overlapping run, and Trippier's found Almiron on the right-hand side, cutting back in his left foot. Trippier now with the overlap. Almiron will find Kieran Trippier, gets the cross in. It was going towards Callum Wilson. It's headed up in the air by Eric Dyer, headed away further by Sessegnon, but Newcastle will reclaim possession here with Bruno Guimaraes, about 35 yards out. Dan Burn out to Joelinton on the left-hand side. He's got Willock for company as well. Back to Dan Burn. Only Callum Wilson inside the penalty area for Newcastle. Joelinton into Sean Longstaff. Good tackle there by Bentancur, and Tottenham can come away. Harry Kane. He's got Heung-min Son to his right-hand side. Bentancur joining the attack as well. Harry Kane going on his left. Cutting inside. Harry Kane back onto his left foot. Get the shot away. Good save from Nick Pope. Comes out to Heung-min Son on his right foot. Now gives it back to Harry Kane. He's got Bentancur outside him. Harry Kane will keep the ball and gives it now to Bissouma. Big chance that for Tottenham. Still with Bissouma. Sanchez cutting on his right-hand side. Can he get the cross in? Joelinton goes out to cross, collect the ball. It's headed back into the penalty area, and Newcastle just about deal with it. Sanchez got the ball in there, but Newcastle dealt with it well inside the penalty area. Sean Longstaff's now down after a challenge from Oliver Skip, but that was the first real chance we've seen in terms of a breakaway from Tottenham because they could be so effective on the counter-attack. Harry Kane and Heung-min Son both involved there. Nick Pope pulling off a good save from the England captain.
Oh, it was absolutely super save. Really, Nick Pope has, when he was at Burnley, it was the same thing. He was very, very good with his legs making the save, making these kick saves. And you can see here when Kane gets, but Kane has got too much space in front of him. The defender just doesn't get close enough, and he's able to get that shot away. But that's a second save by Nick Pope in this game that has kept the score blank.
Good left foot strike by Harry Kane, low down to Nick Pope's left-hand side, and his left foot replied with a very good stop, and that's been a trait of Nick Pope ever since he came into the Premier League with Burnley, and Newcastle got a very good signing in the England goalkeeper for just £8 million following Burnley's relegation. Kieran Trippier, another very good signing on this right-hand side, gives it to Almiron, back to Trippier, further back now to Fabian Schär. Ball forward now, looking for Callum Wilson. He could get behind, but Lloris gets there first. No foul given. Callum Wilson will look to dink it, and Newcastle lead. Well, this is incredible. Callum Wilson looks to have given Newcastle the lead, but Hugo Lloris is absolutely furious. It was a long ball forward by Fabian Schär. The Tottenham defence was caught out. Lloris looked to deal with it, He ran into Callum Wilson. He's claiming there was a foul. No free kick was given by Jared Gillett. Callum Wilson calmly dinked it over the Tottenham defence into the back of the net. And we'll have a look at VAR, of course you will. But as it stands, it's Tottenham 0, Newcastle 1.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. Looking at this, I don't think it. Well, no, I don't think that was a foul, and I'll tell you why I think that, Chris, because this is not just a case of being blocked. He charges out here, and I think they just collide. That's
it's very interesting,
finish.
isn't it? Because it's a brilliant finish from Callum Wilson, has to be said, with his left foot. Lovely dink over Eric Dyer, who was nowhere near to getting close to it in terms of clearing it off the line, but you have to say, if you talk about a foul, for example, like Callum Wilson, he can't move out the way. Lloris hasn't dealt with it as he could have done. He could have put it into the stands. He could have put it anywhere other than where he did. We are looking at a possible foul with VAR. I think you could easily make a case. You could easily make a case for both. I think Newcastle would feel aggrieved if it got ruled out. I think Tottenham could look to say that Wilson got in the way of Lloris. But you have to say Callum Wilson can't actually move away from where Lloris has pushed this ball. I think the only thing that could go against Callum Wilson here is that his arm comes up almost in a bit of a blocking motion. That's the only thing that could go against him here. But you can't take anything away from the finish. And we don't know how long VAR could take here. Given
this is a clear and obvious thing, isn't it, Chris? I mean,
exactly. How clear and obvious is this? And again, if you have to look at this for so long, is it clear? Is it obvious? Referee Jared Gillett is talking to Harry Kane. The goal is given. Newcastle United lead at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Callum Wilson with his 4th Premier League goal of the season. And what a dramatic way to open the scoring. Tottenham 0, Newcastle 1.
Well, it's interesting. The arm did go across Lloris. So when I saw that, I thought to myself, well, maybe this will get disallowed. But I also noticed Lloris went down very, very easily. He's a big man. Wilson didn't knock him down. He went down very, very easily. And I think that might have gone in Wilson's favour as well.
And just as last season, Newcastle take the lead at Tottenham. Newcastle with a 1-0 lead, courtesy of Callum Wilson. Tottenham 0, Newcastle 1. If we're going by VAR, the goal was after 33 minutes, but it was scored a good few minutes before that by Callum Wilson. But how will Tottenham react? That goal as well, coming shortly after Nick Pope did to be at least involved in the 55 perspective England squad, as we've been hearing could well be the case out of the World Cup. But you're very much hoping that a good run of form could even see him get on the plane to Qatar. Tottenham now with Yves Bissouma. Davinson Sanchez looking for Heung-min Son. He's headed it now to Rodrigo Bentancur. Tottenham looking to get in behind Sven Botman. Bentancur left-hand side to Ryan Sessegnon. Will get the cross in. It's well over Heung-min Son. It'll go safely through to the far side. Royale will look to keep it in, but he doesn't manage to do so. And in front of the Newcastle fans, it is a Newcastle throw-in, level with their own 6-yard box. We got a yellow card in the midst of all that as well for Rodrigo Bentancur, the Uruguayan midfielder. Potentially a bit of frustration there handed out by Jared Gillett.
Looks like it's unsportsmanlike conduct.
So could well have been arguing the case to get the goal disallowed, but the goal does stand. If you're just joining us here on the commentary hub, with 35 minutes into the contest, where it's Tottenham 0, Newcastle United 1. The ball from Longley finds Emerson Royale. His ball inside to Heung-min Son. Turning back now to Davinson Sanchez. Eric Dyer. Longley. Forward to Ben Dyer again. Long ball looking to Sessegnon. That's been the main outlet for Tottenham in this first half. Ryan Sessegnon going backwards. He's been dealt with really well by Kieran Trippier. Bentancur now looking for Emerson Royale. It's a lovely ball out to the right wing back. Up against Dan Burn, who's defended really well as well in that left back role. Davinson Sanchez. Bentancur. That's a really poor ball looking for Ryan Sessegnon. It's been cut out by Almiron, and Newcastle can look to break. Callum Wilson. That's a lovely touch to get away from Longley, and he's fronting up Eric Dyer now. Almiron finds... Well, he went to find Joel Linton, but it was a heavy touch from the Paraguayan. He knows there was an opportunity for a second potentially for Newcastle. It was Callum Wilson that cut the ball back
Just a poor touch
to him, but
there
it was a
by
heavy
Almiron.
touch before he could find Joel. Newcastle defending really well there, and they've now won, or given away a throw-in rather, I was going to say. I thought it looked like Oliver Skip put the ball out, but to throw into Tottenham just on halfway. Dyer, there's a lot of long balls going forward here for Tottenham. I think that's just saying how well Newcastle are defending when the long ball seems like the main option for Spurs, because Newcastle are just defending so well yet so deep, and Tottenham are really struggling to get in and amongst them and really get into areas where they can hurt this Newcastle team. Bruno Guimaraes dropping deep and looking to spread the ball out to Trippier. Has to just go back a few yards to collect the ball, but it's really good control from the Englishman. And good ball now to Longstaff. Back to Bruno Guimaraes. He's looking for Joel Linton. He could be offside, but gets him behind Emerson Royale. Still with Joel Linton. And still with Joel Linton! Oh my word! How close was that?
Oh, that might have even, the offside flag went up, but that might have clipped the outside of the post. His first touch from Joel Linton was excellent. This was a superb pass over to Joel Linton, and I think it was from Fabian Schär, the original pass. But it's a superb touch. He brings it down, and that was very close to adding to Newcastle's lead.
Indeed, the offside flag did go up in the end, but it's one of them with close offside decisions. Now they are getting told to put the flag down more often than not, and then we'll make the decision after the ball goes into the back of the net. It was a brilliant effort from Joel Linton, it has to be said, collecting the ball on the left-hand side, cutting inside, and letting fly with his right foot. It flew just past Hugo Lloris's left-hand post, but the flag did go up. Antonio Conte's got some thinking to do as we approach half-time. 38 minutes gone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's Tottenham 0, Newcastle United 1. Callum Wilson with the goal. It's been given us 31 minutes, which is when the ball did hit the back of the net. I think the VAR decision was made after 33 minutes. But you're listening to alternative commentary on the commentary hub with myself, Chris Coughlin, and Paul James. So now on the far side, Guimaraes collects it from Byrne. Longstaff back to Nick Pope. Pope out to Fabian Schär. Kieran Trippier. And now it's Bruno Guimaraes back to Schär and looks for Dan Byrne at left back. He will make the towering fullback and he'll find Joel Willock. That's a lovely ball. Sean Longstaff, opportunity here on the right-hand side for Newcastle. Almiron. He's got Longstaff on the overlap, and he'll send it towards the far post. It's over Callum Wilson's head, and Royale will deal with it. But again, the danger with Newcastle getting forward on the counter-attack, and it was Tottenham we were talking about earlier in the half in terms of that counter-attacking ability, but very much in the last few minutes it's been Newcastle doing so. It was an opportunity for Sean Longstaff, and he didn't really make the most of it with that cross. Callum Wilson was free at the far post, but it went over his head.
It's too easy.
Tottenham have the ball back.
It's too easy to be breaking out like that. Again, the Spurs defence just not getting close enough.
Almiron now getting away from Ryan Sessegnon. Almiron to the penalty area. Still Miguel Almiron. Oh! He's in the form of his life. Miguel Almiron has scored again. And Newcastle United lead by 2 at Tottenham. Brilliant strength from the Paraguayan international to get away from Ryan Sessegnon, get into the penalty area, onto his left foot, and it's a lovely finish past Hugo Lloris at his near post. 41 minutes gone, Tottenham 0, Newcastle 2. Miguel Almiron is on fire at the moment.
Well, he just skips inside, doesn't he? It's a nice finish. I think, again, it starts with the Lloris goal kick, and then the header, and it's just, again, defensively Spurs are just not there. Sessegnon loses it. Oh, he's able to get past Sessegnon at least with ease, and it's just too easy for him to. They're not the two defenders. Number 34, Lenyat, doesn't get close enough to him. And the finish is exquisite, mind you. It's a wonderful goal. But again, Spurs, well, it started to look very familiar to what I saw against Manchester United.
Miguel Almiron, the form of his life. Before, in a previous season for Newcastle, he had never scored more than 4 goals in a single Premier League campaign. That goal is his 6th of the season and his 5th in his last 5 games. A remarkable run of form for the former Atlanta United forward. And Tottenham really now have got a lot of work to do just to get back into this game. Never mind think about getting the 3 points. The Newcastle fans are very much enjoying themselves down in North London this afternoon. And why wouldn't they be? Leading 2-0 at Tottenham. And it's a fantastic start to the season for the Toon Army. It's only looking to get better at the moment. Gimenez back to Fabian Schär. Newcastle in possession again. Trippier. Almiron. He's got past Ryan Sessegnon again, and he's really got the better of him and Longley down this left-hand side for Newcastle. Bentancur just about gets the ball off Almiron. Longley now. Dyer. How can Spurs react to this? Because this is a major blow, given that Arsenal dropped points earlier on today. If they were looking at getting to within just 2 points of their North London rivals, from even thinking about that at the moment. If you're just joining us, well, it's been a dramatic first half. 43 minutes gone. Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 2. Callum Wilson with the opening goal after 31 minutes, technically 33 if you count in the VAR review. And then Miguel Almiron just continued his incredible form with a brilliant individual goal after 40 minutes. And Tottenham looked shell-shocked. Kieran Trippier with the throw-in on this near right-hand side. But 2 minutes before stoppage time, which you imagine there will be a few of them if you factor in the VAR review. Mind you, I know at Anfield in the week there was a very lengthy VAR review, at least 3 minutes or so, and there are only 2 minutes added on, so we'll have to wait and see how many additional minutes are given at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The ball's back with Hugo Lloris, and that is not where Tottenham need it now. They need it forward, but again, Eric Dyer just looking for options, and they've gone long so many times in this first half, and it just says how well Tottenham have, or how well Newcastle have dealt with the several Tottenham threats. Bentancur looking forward now, looking for Emerson Royale. He's got him behind. He's onside. He's got Harry Kane for company as well as Heung-min Son. The ball back to Ryan Sessegnon. The two wing-backs ending up on the same side. Bentancur, the lovely ball out to Heung-min Son. Right-hand side for Tottenham, giving it back to Oliver Skipp. And again, back even further as far as Sanchez, who has to scramble to get the ball back to Longley under pressure from Joe Linton. Eric Dyer's gone all the way back to Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, they've been pressed of Spurs throughout this game as it's developed. Newcastle have really started to press them. Spurs have been unable to break Newcastle down as this half has gone on. And over time, Newcastle have taken over the charge of this game. They have been incredibly impressive this season. And I am very impressed with what I've seen in this first half by Newcastle. Antonio Conte has got his work cut out at half-time.
Been a tremendous display all round from Newcastle, but particularly defensively, has to be said. And even when Tottenham have got past the Newcastle rearguard, Nick Pope's been there to deny both Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. And we're going to go into stoppage time now, where there will be a total of 3 minutes at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Can Tottenham get back into this game before the interval? Joe Linton on the far side, twisting and turning, back to Joe Willock, who looks to find Almiron on the right-hand side. Why wouldn't you? He's tried to get past Ryan Sessegnon, claims of handball, not given. Sessegnon looks to get away. Heung-min Son crowds out of it again. It did look suspicious on the far side, but no free kick given. Back to Kieran Trippier. Into Joe Willock. Wilson now, back to Bruno Gimenez. On the right-hand side again, Miguel Almiron. Takes his time, back to Bruno Gimenez. Over the top looking for Almiron. Is a bit too heavy. He'll try to keep it in. In fact, he might have done so. Lloris has to deal with it. but the ball had gone out of play in any circumstance from Almiron. It's he's such a threat at the moment. When you consider, given when the takeover happened and a lot of people were talking about the players that could come in and players that could leave, I'm pretty sure for a lot of players, or for a lot of Newcastle fans rather, Miguel Almiron was not particularly on the keeping side of things, but in the absence of St Maximan in particular, he's really shone for
Oh, he
Newcastle.
has.
Not this season, 6 goals so far this campaign, the best of his career, and he's an ever-present threat down Newcastle's right-hand side.
He has been,
Can
but throughout
Tottenham
this
come
first
forward here?
half, they can't deal with him.
They can't, and Almiron tracking back there to win the ball from Harry Kane, but a foul had been given in any circumstance. And Harry Kane just having a word there with Jared Gillett about the foul committed in the middle of the park. We've got 1 minute of stoppage time to go at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Can Spurs get one back before half time? How do they need it? It's going to be a long free kick into the penalty area from Yves Bissouma. Nick Pope came to think about it, but it's headed away as far as Emerson Royale. Dinks it back into the penalty area. Headed away again by Newcastle. Out to Yves Bissouma. And now Skip out to Royale. Son, far side. Gives it back to Royale with the first time cross. It's deflected by Joe Linton, and Bruno Guimaraes will get it cleared. Just over 30 seconds to go. And then be half time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And it's been a remarkable first 45 minutes. The ball forward from Sessegnon is Son onside. The flag stays down. It's back as far as back as far as Bentancur, I think that was, with the effort, but it was blocked in the end. In fact, Longley might have even been who stayed forward from the original free kick. That's why I was a tad confused, given how forward the centre-back was. But that's the threat Tottenham are having to resort to. Son was onside, laid the ball back to Longley, and he's not the player, with all due respect, they'd want in that situation. And with that, the half-time whistle has blown. What a first 45 minutes we have seen in North London. It's Tottenham 0, Newcastle United 2. The first half started well for Tottenham. Efforts from Heung-min Son and Harry Kane well saved by Nick Pope, but then the breakthrough came on 31 minutes. Long fall forward by Fabian Schär. Hugo Lloris came out to deal with it. He failed to do so and collided with Callum Wilson. No free kick was given. Callum Wilson composed himself and from 30 yards dinked the ball into an unguarded net with a cool left foot finish. There was a VAR review, of course, but referee Jared Gillett and the VAR team at Stockley Park decided that no free kick was to be given, and Newcastle had the lead. And then after that, it was all. He collected the ball, he got past Ryan Sessegnon, skinned Clement Longley, and then his finish was just typical of a man in very good goal scoring form. Miguel Almiron with his 6th of the season, his 5th in his last 5 games. And at half time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it's Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 2. Paul James, your thoughts on that first half?
Well, Newcastle, Nick Pope obviously made 2 vital saves, but Newcastle really grew into the game. They started off looking a bit standoffish defensively. Then as the game went on, they began to press Spurs, and it made it hard for Spurs to break Newcastle down. And of course, I think the 2 goals, certainly the first goal, exquisite finish actually, over the goalkeeper. The second goal, I think defensively, there was questions to be asked of Sessegnon at least. But the finish again was absolutely superb. I think Newcastle can go in now at half-time and feel very, very satisfied. As for Conte, maybe changes are needed at half-time.
Yes, half-time at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Newcastle have a deserved 2-goal cushion. It's Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 2.
Thank you very much to Chris Coughlin and Paul James. We'll be back with both of those in plenty enough time for the second period to guide you through what has been a fantastic game of football so far. Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 2 is the scoreline, and that is what the scoreline reads. And I've got to say, like the guys have just been saying there, Tottenham started off well, but then Newcastle have gone into it. And for me, I think Newcastle deserve to be leading by 2 goals. Now, let us know what you think. You can tweet us if you want at Commentary Live 1, or you can put it in the live chat, whether you're listening on YouTube or on our Twitch channels as well. If you're listening on YouTube, you'll listen on either the Commentary Up 2, Storm FM, or JB Sports. Also, if you're on our Twitch channel, get involved there as well, and we'll keep your comments clean to be a family-friendly show. We'll be bringing Paul James back in for a second, very, very shortly, to give us some more words on that first half. But while we're waiting for that to happen, let's just have a look at the other scores from around the games taking place today. Starting off in the Premier League, Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0, Leeds United 2, Fulham 3, Southampton 1, Arsenal 1, and Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, Leicester City 4. In the Championship, 2 games took place earlier today. Swansea City 2, Cardiff City 0, and Watford 4, Luton Town 0. In Premier League 2, which is the under-21s, Newcastle United 3, Southampton 2, and Stoke City 2, Sunderland 3. So 5-goal thrillers in those games. Today we've already had a 5-goal thriller in the Premier League at Ellen Road. In the Women's Super League, it finished Liverpool 0, Arsenal 2, Leicester 0, Manchester United 1, West Ham 3, Reading 2, Brighton against Chelsea is the evening kickoff at 6:45. In the Women's Championship, 6 matches today after Birmingham against Durham was postponed. Sunderland 0, London City Lionesses 2, Blackburn Rovers 3, Coventry United 2, Lewes 2, Charlton Athletic 1, Sheffield United 0, Southampton 1, Bristol City 3, Crystal Palace 0. In the under-17 European Championships qualification, first round stage, some results to give you there. Sweden 3, Wales 3, Croatia 1, Albania 0, Ireland 2, Belarus 2, Austria 0, Montenegro 1, Poland 6, Andorra 1, and Norway 1, Armenia 0 is the latest score. In Ligue 1 in France, 1 of 7 games is currently taking place. The other 5 are results. He finished Angers 1, Rennes 2, Clermont 1, Brest 3, Reims 2, Auxerre 1, Toulouse 2, Strasbourg 2, Troyes 2, Lorient 2, and it's currently Nice 0, Nantes 1. Lille against Monaco is a 7:45 p.m. kickoff. In the German Bundesliga, Bochum 2, Union Berlin 1 is a full-time score, while at half-time is Hertha Berlin 0, Schalke 0. That's at half-time in the German Bundesliga. In the Italian Serie A, 2 early results, 1 latest score and 1 evening kickoff is Udinese 1, Torino 2, a full-time score, and another full-time score is Bologna 2, Lecce 0, and the latest score is Atalanta 0, Lazio 1 after 26 minutes in that game. AS Roma against Napoli is this evening. In the Dutch Eredivisie, it finishes Excelsior 2, AZ Alkmaar 1, Camber 0, FC 21, Groningen 4, PSV Eindhoven 2, Nimgen 3, Go Ahead Eagles 3, and with 9 minutes to go is Utrecht 3, Sparta Rotterdam 0. There's an evening kickoff in the Dutch Eredivisie at 7 o'clock, which is FC Volendam against Heerenveen. In the Liga Portugal, to round out some of the matches for you, a couple of games coming up towards full time is Maritimo 1, Aruca 1, and Vezela 0, Santa Clara 1. Evening kickoff at 6 o'clock for Chivas against Gil Vicente, and Grimares against Boavista is at 8:30 this evening. There's some games in the Spanish La Liga, 2 early results, 3 evening kickoffs. Espanyol 2, Elche 2 is a result, as is Real Betis 1, Atletico Madrid 2. Evening kickoffs at 5:30 for Girona against Osasuna and Villarreal against Almeria, while Barcelona take on Athletic Club at 8 o'clock this evening. Right, just before the second half gets underway, and we'll try and bring Paul in now. And very good evening once again to you, Paul. For me, as I mentioned just as the start before we went into some of the scores from today, I said that for me, I thought Newcastle deserved of their lead. Tottenham started off slow, but then Newcastle started off slow, so they say then Newcastle came into it. And I think overall, on the balance of play, you'd have to say Newcastle deserved it for me. Would you agree with that, or if not, what would you say your overall thoughts are on that first half today, Paul?
Oh no, I absolutely agree with you. I think Newcastle did grow into the game after a little bit of a shaky start. They definitely grew into it. They took their press, pushed Spurs back. Spurs then resorting to the more longer ball over the top. They were unable to break Spurs down. Sorry, they were unable to break Newcastle down. So, needless to say, the two saves by Pope were extremely important. Um, but it's uh, it's interesting. Uh, it's interesting that Newcastle are now in a good position now, and whether or not they can keep it going in the second half, I think it might be interesting to see Spurs to see if they make some changes.
Yes, and if you just look at that first half, obviously, as I mentioned, Newcastle were deserving of that lead. I think if you lead in 2-0 away at Tottenham, you wouldn't have to change anything. And I think that's probably going to be the case for Eddie Howe. If you were in Antonio Conte's shoes right now, Paul, what things would you change? Because obviously Rodrigo Benton goes on a booking. He won't be able to go into for tackles like he will be able to, like he has done in the past. What situations do you think? What would you do with that situation there, my friend?
Well, I might consider bringing on Jed Spence. I think uh, I think they're lacking not just defensively. I think they were pretty sloppy defensively, but I think going forward, they need something as well. I may consider bringing on Lucas Moura as an option, but really they don't have much attacking wise in terms of what they've got on the bench apart from Moura. Even Perisic might be an option. But I think Spurs need they maybe need to change a little bit the way that they're playing. I think right now Newcastle are playing extremely well. It's a tough call for Conte, but I may make some changes at half time. I may bring on Perisic and Jed Spence as possible, or I may bring on Lucas Moura just to play behind Son and Kane. But it's interesting. Let's see how it goes. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't. If it was me, I would be looking at making changes at halftime. I wouldn't go out with that same team in the second half. They're not playing well right now.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Just going to fetch you some news coming through with regards to Jesse Marsh. Let's say following the Leeds United game as finished this afternoon. Some of the quotes from Jesse Marsh speaking after the game to the media today, which I can find for you from Adam Pope, who commentates on Leeds United on a regular basis. He has said, and I can. This is Jesse Marsh, by the way, what he has said. And some quotes as well. He says, "I understand their anger on about the fans' anger is directed at me. My focus is trying to improve the team. In I, I have said in the club we are unified together." Jesse Marsh says he has spoken to the board and they are backing him. We are together in that. He says, I take responsibility. I understand the frustration from the fans. We are doing everything we can. We're unified. The players have been great, and it hasn't been easy for them. We believe in them. The board and I are unified. I'm looking directly at myself. He says, we find a way to lose. Every game is in the balance. Marsh has said he's not going to blame the bored for not signing a striker. He says, I'm not going to start playing hindsight or throw anyone under the bus. Leeds, possible for me, maybe needed another striker with the issues of Patrick Bamford we're having. He goes on to say, and why Leeds are in a similar relegation troubles as last season, having sold Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. We knew it was going to be a new project by rebuilding with new players. That's some of the stuff he says. He says, it's my job to tell the team turn the results so the fans turn their opinion. They're frustrated by the fact that we can't get results. So some interesting stuff there from Jesse Marsh after the game today, speaking with the local press following Leeds United's game, which seemed to be having a bit of trouble with Chris Coughlin at the moment. So we'll try and get Chris back as soon as we can. Unsure why we're having these problems. We'll see if we can get Chris back very, very shortly. We'll do our very best to do that. Second half will be getting back underway in a second, and we'll try and get back to Chris and to give us a second half commentary. Just to bring you back, we can now, with the second half almost set to go, we'll fetch you back your match commentary team of Paul James and first Chris Coughlin.
Thank you very much, Russ. The teams are just coming back out at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where there's been an absolute downpour at half-time. When it rains, it pours, it seems, for Tottenham. But for Newcastle, well, at the moment, they are fourth in the Premier League table, going above Chelsea on goal difference. They're the only team this season not to have conceded at least 10 goals in the Premier League. And they are just 2 points as things stand off Tottenham Hotspur. So a very, very big second half for both teams coming up. It looks like no changes.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's been any
half
change
time
at all.
for either team, and as the guys were talking about half time, that's potentially a bit of a surprise given how things went for Tottenham. But Antonio Conte's clearly got faith in his squad that they can turn things around, and they will have to go some way to doing that in the second half. Tottenham Hotspur 0, Newcastle United 2. Goals in the first half from Callum Wilson and Miguel Almiron, giving Eddie Howe's team a very much deserved lead. Ryan Sessegnon looking to try and win an early corner against Kieran Trippier, but he doesn't manage to do so, and it's gone out. And I don't know whether you're seeing this as well, Paul. Some fans seem to be taking their time to get out for the second half, given the absolute deluge in North London right now.
Yes, it's a mini monsoon, isn't it? But you've also got some fans out there who are pretty much dancing in the rain. Well, Newcastle fans certainly have a right to have a dance in the rain right now.
Absolutely. It really is incredible conditions. We saw a bit of lightning as well at the half-time interval. Bruno Guimaraes has gone down there, I think under the challenge of Yves Bissouma, maybe a bit of a kind of dead leg feeling to it, because he didn't like the challenge, holding his upper thigh on his right leg, but he is up now, the Brazilian international, and he's picked up the ball from Trippier, and he spreads the ball out wide to Joe Linton, who caused havoc down this left-hand side in the first half. He's got Dan Berners outside, Joe Linton cutting inside, back onto his left foot, finds Joe Will. Now far side to Almiron. He couldn't do it again, could he? Almiron into Trippier. It's come back to Almiron. The first time he shot is blocked. It's come back to Almiron again, and his shot again is blocked out by Clement Longley. But the effort and the opportunity there for Almiron was almost like his wonder goal at Fulham a couple of weeks ago with the volley as it came back to him. But it's gone out now for a corner on the far side. Almiron thought about taking it, but we'll leave it to the Newcastle captain Kieran
Playing
Trippier.
with a
We've seen the
smile on
Newcastle
his
fans.
face. Chris is playing with a smile on his face. He's full of confidence right now. Is
They're very much enjoying themselves, those Newcastle fans. As Trippier sends the ball towards the far post, Botman heading it back, and now we'll come to Almiron again. It's up in the air this time. Out to Fabian Schär on the left-hand side, headed away by Davinson Sanchez. Good defending by the Colombian. Botman back to Schär, inside to Joel. Now swinging it out, lovely pass, looking for Almiron, but it's cut out. Dan Burn wins it back for Newcastle. Bruno out to Almiron. Sessegnon went out to try and face him, and that's maybe the tactic Ryan Sessegnon will have to take in this first half, because he was given the runaround in all honesty by Miguel Almiron. Now Bruno Guimaraes, Dan Burn, Joelinton again on this left-hand side, where he's playing instead of his central midfield role usually. He's playing on the left-hand side today. Bruno Guimaraes. Now Joe Willock, former Arsenal man. Trippier gets the ball out of his feet, sends it in. It's blocked by Bentancur. Bissouma underneath it. Can't find Harry Kane, and the frustrations are only growing for Tottenham early in this first half. Almiron. Back to Guimaraes. Now Trippier again. Almiron. Into Guimaraes. Plenty going on his left-hand side, and now we give it to Dan Burn. Joelinton up against Emerson Royal, going on the outside, trying to get the cross in. It was going to go behind for another Newcastle United corner, but Joelinton is looking quite adept at the left midfield role, the winger role that he's playing in this system today for Newcastle. We're just seeing Kieran Trippier go over to this near side and a kick. Newcastle kicking from right to left in this second half. Tottenham kicking from left to right towards that huge wall at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the wall of Tottenham fans, as Trippier takes it short and sends the free kick in towards the far post. That was a lovely delivery from Kieran Trippier, and it just evaded. I think it was Sven Botman in the middle. But again, another fantastic in-swing delivery from Kieran Trippier.
Oh, it was outstanding. He swung it right into that corridor of uncertainty. Very difficult to deal with in that situation. It's actually pretty decent defending. I think it's by Dyer that gets the header out there. But yeah, Newcastle have started the second half very much the way they ended the first.
Tottenham coming forward now. Sessegnon retrieving the ball from Bentancur, and it's a poor cross right down the throat of Nick Pope, with Heung-min Son and Harry Kane nowhere near it. I was going to say, I think from Trippier's delivery, it looked like Botman would have been offside had he made contact, but still it was good defending by Eric Dyer at the far post. Now Dan Burn at left back. Lovely ball into Longstaff. Newcastle looking forward all the time, and the ball forward looking for Joe Willock. Eric Dyer will put it out of play, and I think that's going to be a Newcastle throw, and it is just outside the Tottenham penalty area. It'll be Dan Burn to take it. Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes are options. He gives it to Joelinton. Back to Sven Botman, who's of course played a massive part of this terrific Newcastle defensive effort this season. Trippier back to Longstaff. Almiron, lovely flick around the corner, looking for Longstaff, and he's got there as well. Sean Longstaff sends the cross in. Joelinton's arriving, and it's going to be a corner kick. Newcastle perhaps wants a penalty.
Yeah, no penalty for me. But it just, I'm going to look at it again, but that looked like it.
The ball came in. Oh, this is very interesting, because Joelinton's header came back. It categorically hits Emerson Royal on the forearm, on the hand. His arm is out. It's an unnatural position.
They'll have to look at that.
Very much see Newcastle potentially getting a penalty here. Emerson Royal
didn't hit his head. That's
somehow claiming the ball hit his ear instead of his hand, which
no.
it did not hit his ear before his hand. It hit his ear after hitting his hand, but it looks like there won't be a penalty for this. That is an interesting decision to say the least, because it certainly wasn't a natural position for Emerson Royal's hands, but Tottenham got away with one as Trippier sends in the corner kick. It'll come through the far post. A good save by Lloris, scrambling around, and Royal clears it this time. Longstaff Launching it forward, Callum Wilson has taken it down. Can he get a shot away, Callum Wilson? It's blocked as well by Sessegnon, but a great chance for Newcastle rather to get a third here. The ball's now out to Hyun-Min Son on the left-hand side, cutting it inside. Could this be a goal back for Tottenham? It's going to be a corner kick, but a really good save from Hugo Lloris to keep it at 2.
Yeah, if that would have gone in, that would have been game over. Good save, and yeah, I'm very surprised that penalty wasn't given. Looking at it again, because it does clearly hit his arm in a natural position.
Hyun-Min Son with the in-swinging corner on the right-hand side. Can Tottenham cause Newcastle the amount of problems that Newcastle have caused them at set pieces? Hyun-Min Son, right arm raised. Be an in-swinger with his right foot flicked on. It's in! Tottenham are back in it. It's Harry Kane! And a crucial moment early on in this second half for Tottenham Hotspur. The flick onto the near post was met by the England captain. And Tottenham is onside. Have a route back into the contest. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. Harry Kane.
Yeah, that was again. That just shows the importance of Lloris's save, because at 3-0 the game's over. At 2-1 Spurs are back into it, and Kane is now within 7 goals of the great Jimmy Greaves' Spurs record.
I was going to say he's closing in all the time on that remarkable record of Jimmy Greaves. 266 goals for the Tottenham legend. Meanwhile, Harry Kane, who's also, I think it's fair to say, a Tottenham legend without maybe having the trophies to back it up. He's on 259. There is a VAR check. I'm not sure what for. Whether it's hit Harry Kane's arm potentially, or whether it's flicked Davinson Sanchez, which would make Harry Kane offside. I don't think it has flicked Sanchez. We're just seeing the slow motions now. If it flicks Davinson Sanchez, Harry Kane is then offside, but I don't think it's very difficult to tell, even in slow motion, whether Sanchez has got a touch on it. It'd be his shoulder if he did touch it.
And again, it goes back to clear and obvious. If they have to look at this for minutes at a time, it's not clear and obvious.
Well, we're watching the slow motion and we can't tell.
Exactly. I can't be sure.
Jared Gillett's listening. The ball doesn't take an unnatural movement towards Harry Kane following the flick on. It was Longley with the flick on in the first place at the near post. And Harry Kane just stoops to head it in. So no problem with the actual finish, but it's whether Harry Kane was onside, and he was indeed. The referee, Jared Gillett, has pointed to the centre circle. He has given the goal. Harry Kane moves on to 259 for Tottenham Hotspur, but more crucially in the moment, he's reduced the arrears to just 1 goal, and it's Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. Harry Kane yet again.
Yeah, I think the right decision was made there,
because I think to Tottenham with their own penalty area.
We'd have seen the trajectory of the ball change had there been even the slightest of touch, I think. So I think the right decision was made there by VAR.
Harry Kane's 10th Premier League goal of the season, his 11th of the campaign overall, when you factor in his goal against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League recently as well. But there's a new bit of life that's been put into Tottenham since that goal. Newcastle just have a bit to think about defensively now, which they didn't really have to in the first half, or a few good saves from Nick Pope. Emerson Royale, it's a lovely ball, but it's close, too close to Nick Pope again, and Harry Kane can't get on the end of it. I suppose one thing, Paul, as well. I mean, Harry Kane, he's got 11 goals this season, 10 in the Premier League. He's having a fantastic campaign, but because there's somebody called Erling Haaland around, he's not being talked about as much.
No, that's true. Yeah, because Erling Haaland's record is ridiculous. So it's not being talked about a lot. And it's unfortunate for Kane, because Harry Kane is a world-class striker. And yes, he's not won anything at Tottenham, and I don't know whether anytime soon he's going to. But he's still an absolute world-class striker and should always be recognised as such.
Wilson now with the flick to Willock. Cutting inside, Joe Willock for Newcastle, just wide. Newcastle so close to restoring their 2-goal lead. I'm not sure if Wilson would have been offside if he'd got a touch, but Willock, the former Arsenal man, with the effort. I think it does, in fact, come off Callum Wilson in the end, just inches past the post. And the flag didn't go up.
I don't think he was offside. I think I think he was onside. But you know the more of a touch on that, and that's 3-1.
Nick Pope dicing with a bit of danger there with Harry to pick it up and get it over Harry Kane, and Newcastle can come forward again. Trippier on the right-hand side. Almiron. It's been a bit quieter in this second half. He had a lot of fun in the first, did Miguel Almiron. Bruno Guimaraes looking forward now to Joe Linton. The ball will run through, skips once out of play, and it's out for a Tottenham Hotspur goal kick. We've got 58 minutes gone on the commentary hub, live alternative commentary of the Premier League match between Tottenham Hotspur and Newcastle United at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And it's Tottenham 1, Newcastle United 2. Newcastle deservedly going into a 2-goal lead with goals from Callum Wilson and Miguel Almiron, but Harry Kane has got one back for Tottenham early on in this second half as Rodrigo Bentancur finds Ryan Sessegnon. He looks for Heung-min Son, but it's a poor pass really in the end. It's dealt with by Fabian Schär, and Miguel Almiron can have his first foray forward really of the second half, and Ryan Sessegnon put his hands on him, foul Miguel Almiron, and that's one of the easiest yellow cards referee Jared Gillett will ever have to give out.
Yeah, professional foul there. I always think the referee should book in this situation. No attempt to win the ball, just stopping him from progressing. Right decision all the way.
Definitely, and it's after an improved display in this first 15 minutes or so from Ryan Sessegnon against Almiron, he's now got a bit to think about, unless Antonio Conte thinks about some changes on the left-hand side. Of course, Ivan Perisic has played there a lot this season. Matt Doherty as well, although he's much more of the right wing-back mould. Same goes for Jed Spence, the summer signing from Middlesbrough. Ball forward from Bruno Guimaraes. It'll come through all the way to Hugo Lloris. Shepherded back by Harry Kane. That's not where Tottenham fans want him. They want him up the other end of the pitch, but Lloris with the quick distribution to Heung-min Son, and looking to take on a few Newcastle bodies, and it's the foul by Bruno Guimaraes, who may well go into the book himself here. No cards out yet, but it did look like a referee at least wanted to have a word with the Brazilian. Heung-min Son was on his own against 6 or 7 Newcastle bodies, so he did well to win the free kick in any circumstance. And I do think Bruno Guimaraes might be a tad fortunate to avoid a booking there, as we're seeing a substitution now for Tottenham, and as just alluded to, Ivan Perisic has come on for Ryan Sessegnon, and I don't want to claim I'm a fortune teller, Paul, but it was a change that we perhaps saw coming after that yellow card.
Absolutely. I don't think Sessegnon has played that well today either. He started off okay, but over time, Almiron was getting the better of him every time. I think Ivan Perisic now coming on is a good decision. It'll give Spurs a fresh approach.
Now Emerson Royal on the right-hand side, taking on Sven Botman, trying to get the cross in. It's going to be a corner for Tottenham. Heung-min Son races across to take it, takes it quickly. Sessegnon, he just went off and replaced by Ivan Perisic, just walking around the edge of the penalty area, and it looked like he was going to get involved for a second there with Son on the ball, but also now gone out for a throw into Tottenham, level with the Newcastle penalty area. Emerson Royal back to Yves Bissouma. Royal again, and it's been put out. Is it going to be a corner coming off Joe Linton? It is. He's furious with the decision, but Son will look to take the corner quickly again. Just seeing there, Tottenham have got 7 goals from corners this season, which is the most of any team in the Premier League. So plenty of threat from these kind of situations. They did, of course, score from one to get the goal to get back in this game through Harry Kane. Heung-min Son this time with an out-swinging delivery. He raises right hand aloft again with his right foot. Plenty of competition going on in there. Heung-min Son towards the far post. It's headed down. It's blocked. It's a brilliant opportunity for Harry Kane. I'm not sure if the flag went up in the end. I think it was for offside. And that almost spares Harry Kane's blushes, because how often do you see him blaze a shot like that?
Not very often. He just blazed that over the crossbar. He wouldn't have known that the flag would have gone up, and he just blazed it over the crossbar. It's very unlike Harry Kane. In that position, you'd make a pretty healthy bet that he put the ball in the net.
uncharacteristic, to say the least, from Harry Kane. But it's interesting as well because the goal has really come from Tottenham's only effort of the second half. Yet Newcastle have had 7 opportunities themselves, albeit only 1 being on target. But it almost strikes as the goal coming a bit against the run of play, even though Tottenham are getting on the ball a lot more now. Emerson Royal down the right-hand side, looking to slip it through to Oliver Skipp. His intended cross is well blocked, and it's been put out for a throw-in by Bruno Guimaraes. Davinson Sanchez back to Bissouma. That's a really poor bit of control from Yves Bissouma. Straight out for a Newcastle throw-in. And all the threat and momentum that we're bringing goes in that one instance.
Yeah, that was poor control. Got to concentrate better than that. Yeah. But I mean, I take my hat off to Conte because he stuck with the same side, and they have managed to forge their way back into the game a little bit. So, you know, they are back in it now. But I respect Conte for that, for sticking faith in that team. A lot of managers would have made a change. If it was me, I would have made a change.
Callum Wilson looked to take on Eric Dyer. He's getting a big chunk of his shirt pulled there by Eric Dyer, but gets away with it. And now it's a foul given against Miguel Almiron on Clement Longley. But Eric Dyer certainly had more than a bit of Callum Wilson's shirt there, although Callum Wilson on the reverse angle may well have had a bit of Eric Dyer's shirt as well. 6 of one, half dozen of the other maybe. Tottenham coming forward now down the left-hand side. Ivan Perisic maybe looking to win the corner. He doesn't manage to do so. Guimaraes cleans up and gives it to Trippier, looking to get clear, and it's gone out now for a Newcastle throw in level with their own penalty area. 65 minutes gone here on the commentary hub. It's Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. Newcastle going into a 2-0 lead in the first half. Goals from Callum Wilson and Miguel Almiron. Harry Kane getting one back for Tottenham early on in this second half. Willock's gone down. Joelinton continues to play. Jared Gillett playing advantage. I think the advantage is gone now. Sean Longstaff out to Miguel Almiron on his left foot. Back to Bruno Guimaraes. Newcastle continuing to play. Joe Willock's yet to get involved in the action as well. Trippier forward to Longstaff. Nice pass inside the penalty area. Good defending now by Clement Longley, but it's recovered by Almiron. Back to Trippier. Gives it back to Almiron. Is he onside? He is. The flag stays down. Almiron with an interesting pass to Longstaff, and he can't keep the ball, but Bruno will send it in first time. It's dealt with by Dyer, and Rodrigo Bentancur does really well to get away from 2 Newcastle players. Charging forward now. He's got Harry Kane one way. He's got Humans on the other, but Joelinton, brilliant tracking work there to win the ball back off Rodrigo Bentancur and win the ball back for Newcastle, because that was a very dangerous breakaway from Tottenham. Brilliant defending from Joelinton.
That was commitment. He must have run all of 50 yards to go back to get that ball. That is commitment right there.
And now Guimaraes is taken down by Oliver Skipp, and that's a yellow card for him. Tottenham's 3rd yellow card of the match after Rodrigo Bentancur and Ryan Sessegnon, who's since been substituted for Ivan Perisic. We're seeing Lucas Moura set to come on now, and another attacking change for Tottenham. And in fact, that will be Oliver Skipp's last contribution of the game. Lucas Moura coming on a much more attack. The first attacking change from Spurs with Lucas Moura coming on. They've made one change as well with one of the wing backs, with Perisic coming on for Sessegnon. So 2 substitutions down for Tottenham. Newcastle still to make their first change.
I wonder whether
now
Moura
it's Joe
will
Willock
just play
who's
behind
back up after that challenge earlier on. That is an option, of course, with Kulishevsky and Richarlison both out in a strange way. Even given all the attacking talent Tottenham have, they are somewhat down to the bare bones in many ways. Kulishevsky is, he was pretty injury-free last season after joining from Juventus. Richarlison's had quite a few issues, really, certainly in recent weeks. Newcastle win the ball back. Fabian Schär, really nice step over. Still with Fabian Schär, and it's saved by Hugo Lloris. The effort from 25 yards or so from the Swiss international for winning the ball back. Hugo Lloris looked to clear it away, and Callum Wilson blocks the effort. That might well be a yellow card for Callum Wilson, and indeed it will, for not really allowing Hugo Lloris to get the ball clear from his clearance. It's one of them, Paul. I mean, what do you think about that kind of scenario? Because if anything, it doesn't actually touch Lloris as he clears the ball. Merely just kind of disturbs him.
Yeah, it's overprotection for the goalkeeper again, isn't it? I mean, I used to be a goalkeeper when I was younger, and I I don't like this overprotection of the goalkeepers. I think it spoils the game. I didn't see a lot wrong with that. I certainly didn't see it being yellow card worthy.
A goalkeeper not sticking up for the goalkeepers union.
Oh, I'm not a member.
I think I've heard it all now. It's a Tottenham free kick just short of the halfway line. The two goalkeepers have certainly played their part today, that's for sure. Nick Pope and Hugo Lloris. That's a slip in midfield from Yves Bissouma. Now Almiron on the right hand side. Really nice play to keep possession of the ball. Kieran Trippier. Again, calm from Trippier. Bruno Guimaraes back to Sven Botman, who'll head it back to Nick Pope, and Newcastle maintain possession. Nick Pope is waiting for Son to close him down before picking the ball and balling it out again. Sven Botman. 68 minutes gone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's Tottenham 1, Newcastle United 2. Tottenham coming forward now with Harry Kane. Still with Harry Kane. He's got it through to Ivan Perisic. First time effort right down the throat of Nick Pope. And a real opportunity there for Ivan Perisic, because Harry Kane did really well to keep the ball. He's so good at that, Harry Kane, and the vision that he possesses. And he found Ivan Perisic with his right foot. And Nick Pope will say thank you very much because it was straight at him.
Yeah, Perisic will be
And now
disappointed
Newcastle
with a
come
shot
forward
there.
again. Newcastle give away the possession of the ball. But as you say, Perisic, he had all the time in the world. And he's good with both feet, Ivan Perisic, certainly. And he'll be disappointed that he didn't find the corner there. And he's just given away a very wayward header to Bruno Guimaraes. Trippier flicks it around the corner to Almiron. That's a hooked ball into Callum Wilson. Nice layoff to Joe Willock. That's a lovely ball as well now to Joe Linton on this left-hand side. Morale coming out to face him. Joe Linton, he's got an overlapping run from Willock, and he's found Joe Willock, and it's a really good bit of defending from Emerson Royale to put it out for a corner, but Newcastle really threatening to add a third there. Joe Linton just onside, running at Emerson Royale. Appreciated the overlap from Joe Willock, and Emerson Royale made sure to track his man and put it out for a corner to Newcastle. It'll be on this near side, so an in-swinger from Kieran Trippier. Joe Linton's in there, Sven Botman's in there, Fabian Schär as well, who's definitely got an eye for goal from Newcastle. Dan Burn as well, towering over Harry Kane. We don't see many players do that. And it'll be Kieran Trippier to take the corner kick, in-swinging towards the far post. Headed back and up in the air, back down towards Schär. The flag didn't go up, and Schär has smashed it across the face of goal. It's gone all the way out for a throw-in on the far side, but there was all just pinballing around somewhat before Schär lashed it across the face of goal. Harry Kane now with the throw-in back to Sanchez, launches it forward. Tottenham have got just short of 20 minutes to get back into this game before we get to stoppage time. And the ball forward, Harry Kane looked to try and keep it, but it's gone out for a Newcastle throw-in. And I think since the goal, Paul, Newcastle's game management has been superb.
Oh, absolutely. They continue to control the game. Joel Linton, just to make a point, Joel Linton has been absolutely amazing in this game. Tracking back, going forward, he's controlled the midfield. He's been absolutely outstanding. And Newcastle, yes, they've controlled this game really since the start of the second half as well. The goal is a little blocked, but they definitely have reacted very well.
It's incredible, really. Joel Linton was signed as a striker, but ever since he's moved everywhere other than striker, he's been one of the first names on the Newcastle team sheet. Was so effective in midfield, left wing today. He's been brilliant. Even saw then closing down Davinson Sanchez, looking to charge forward, and it was good defending in the end by Eric Dyer, who I think came off the worst, really, of the two in that challenge, but to throw into Tottenham Hotspur nevertheless. 72 minutes gone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. Listening to Commentary Hub for alternative commentary of the Premier League with myself, Chris Coughlin, and co-commentator Paul James. Emerson Real challenging Dan Burn there. There was only ever one winner with Dan Burn around for an aerial duel. Joelinton now looking for Joe Willock, and the touch just about gets away from him. He thought about chasing it, but then hesitated, and then when he went to chase it again, the ball was far too far ahead of him before he was able to think about trying to get a cross in. Lloris now to Eric Dyer. Again, having to look long because Newcastle are cutting off all the channels for Tottenham to play through them. Really good play by Sean Longstaff, who's been excellent today, but he's lost the ball to Harry Kane. Lucas Moura, first real involvement for him. Rodrigo Bentancur. Perisic up against Kieran Trippier. Really good defender from Trippier again. And Newcastle can look to maybe get out. Almiron. Trippier wins the throw-in off Ivan Perisic. Newcastle, as I said, controlling this game so well with the winning of the ball, the pressing, the closing down as well. Trippier now throwing the ball forward towards Callum Wilson, who'll win that flick on, and it's gone out for a throw-in on the far side, which Tottenham will look to take hurriedly. Well, I say that, they're rolling it to Ivan Perisic, and you'd imagine the next 15 minutes or so, Tottenham just need to move the ball quicker. They need to open up the play because Newcastle are rather comfortable with the way it's been going in this second half. Lucas Moura looks to win a free kick, doesn't do so. Joelinton challenges Son, and Newcastle win the ball back. Now Almiron to Trippier. Almiron again. Bruno Guimaraes. Trippier receives it from Almiron, and good strength from Almiron, but it's hooked forward again. It'll go through to Nick Pope. In fact, he'll let it run out for a goal kick, and that, Paul, that's just testament to how well Newcastle really have dealt with this. We're seeing Jacob Murphy come on now for Joe Willock, which is Newcastle's first change of the afternoon. But just that awareness of Nick Pope to let the ball go out for a goal kick is just testament to almost the confidence of Newcastle in these situations now, which they maybe didn't have in the last few seasons.
Absolutely. They are dominating the midfield right now. This is where the game is being won and lost at the moment, in the midfield. And Spurs are being, I don't want to say outnumbered, but certainly outplayed in the midfield right now. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to make any bold predictions, but I don't see a way back into this for Spurs right now. They're not looking like an offensive threat at the moment.
It feels difficult to see them getting two at this stage. 15 minutes to go. First Newcastle change there. Joe Willock off for Jacob Murphy, which was the change going into this game anyway from the win over Everton. Jacob Murphy again. A wide player by trade, and in fact he has now gone out to this left-hand side, which puts Joelinton back into his central midfield role, which work as hard as he has done throughout this game, and is now one of his big characteristics. Joelinton. Ivan Perisic looks to get it forward, but good tracking there from Sean Longstaff to put it out for a throw-in. Not too far away from the Newcastle fans, who have very much enjoyed the majority of their afternoon so far. Hugo Lloris looking forward. Again, a long ball that's cut out because that has been Tottenham's main route forward so far. Bissouma looking to charge forward. Perisic. He's got Son outside him, and that's where the ball goes. Son will keep it in and get it into an attacking position to try and take on Fabian Schär, but that's good defending. Him and Trippier doubled up on Son and put it out for a throw-in. Bissouma now to Son. Longley back to Eric Dyer. Playing a long ball out to Emerson Royal. Ball back to Lucas Moura into the penalty area. Joelinton brilliant defending and tracking back again. He has been superb today, Joelinton, but Lucas Moura wins it off him. The midfield working so hard for Newcastle, but losing it again. Lucas Moura, Emerson Royal into Harry Kane. Can he turn? He's controlled it really well. Harry Kane. Heung-min Son, can he get a shot away? It's blocked. Appealing for a penalty. Jared Gillett says no. It was very close range. If it did strike the arm of a Newcastle defender, but Heung-min Son claiming it now. We're just seeing it. No way would that be a penalty. It hit Dan Burns' arm. No, sorry, it hit Dan Burns' knee rather, and I'm not even sure it has hit the arm. It hit the elbow, if anything, but it's very, very harsh if any penalty was being given
Well,
there.
considering the other one wasn't given, it would be outrageous.
It would. The Emerson Royale one we were talking about earlier on the first half. It'd be interesting to see the penalty was incoming, but the referee and the VAR officials at Stockley Park decided against it. We're just seeing Joe Linton down here now, and this would be a big blow for Newcastle if he misses the rest of this game. John Joe Shelby's getting ready to come on. It would be his first Premier League appearance of the season, but it'd be a big blow for Joe Linton. He was involved in a few meaty challenges there. He is walking, so whether he's okay to carry on, we'll wait and see. But John Joe Shelby is being prepared to come on in any instance. Just getting the magic spray there as well, Joe Linton. I mean, Eddie Howe will be doing everything he can to try and keep one of his star men on the pitch.
He's definitely been a difference in this game, in my opinion, in the midfield. Eddie Howe will not want to have him taken off with the scoreline so tight at the moment.
No, it does look like precautionary. In fact, it looks like he's pretty keen to get back onto the pitch, and indeed he is, Joe Linton. So it'll be interesting to see if that John Joe Shelby substitution still happens. 78.5 minutes gone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You're listening to the commentary hub for alternative commentary of the Premier League. Miguel Almiron. Haven't seen too much of him in this second half after his wonderful first half, but now he's in down the right-hand side, looking to take on Longley, receiving the ball back from the Longstaff. Back to Bruno Gimaresh, Kieran Trippier into Almiron. Lovely interchange, and he's won a free kick, I think, for a challenge by Clement Longley. Both him and Bruno Gimaresh going down within about 5 yards of each other, and it was always going to be a free kick one way or the other. Trippier saying to Lucas Moura that one way or another for either Almiron or for Bruno Gimaresh was going to be a foul. Almiron was holding his throat. I wasn't sure it was that severe from Clement Longley, but one way or the other, it's a free kick to Newcastle.
Yeah, I think the referee really has to stop it as well. If you've got a player clutching his throat, there's a health risk there. So I have no problem when a referee stops it for that.
So free kick for Newcastle in front of their own fans, away to the left-hand side. Kieran Trippier, an ever-reliable deliverer from these set pieces, and is very much set to be on the play, looking to help Newcastle secure a famous win at Tottenham. Kieran Trippier sends the ball in. It's flicked on towards the far post by Eric Dyer. Bruno Gimaresh collects on the far side. Up against Longley, still with Bruno Gimaresh, cutting onto his right foot. He's got Longstaff with him if he needs him, and he's looked to try and win a corner, but he hasn't managed to do so because Bentancur's defended that well, and Newcastle have tied it up with Davis. And it's gone out for a throw-in now on this near side. Lucas Moura challenging Bruno Gimaresh. It was Jacob Murphy, I should say, that won the ball back there in midfield. We are going to see Tottenham's third and fourth change of the evening. Clement Longley going off for Ben Davis to come on. And it'll be Davinson Sanchez as well, who's making way for Matt Doherty. So perhaps a change in system from Tottenham. We'll have to see how they line up. But Matt Doherty, who has definitely fought his way back into the thought process of Antonio Conte.
I think with Davinson Sanchez gone, I think he'll just slip into the right wing-back position, Doherty. Then Ben Davis probably at centre with Longley just going off. So it should be interesting to see how it plays out now.
So it looks like, remarkably, Emerson Royale appears to have moved into a centre-back role, which is something we haven't really seen from him. The ball forward looking for Lucas Moura, but Sven Botman heads it back to Nick Pope. So a very interesting change of system there from Antonio Conte. Given Doherty, of course, a more a natural wing-back as his Royale. So for him to be in at centre-back, interesting. But I suppose gambles do need to be taken in the final 10 minutes. 82 minutes gone. Tottenham 1, Newcastle 2. Newcastle been very good value for the 2-1 lead, but we'll have to wait and see if Spurs can get back into this game in the final 10 minutes. The long ball forward by Headed by Cher to Gimaresh. Over his shoulder looking for Wilson. Headed back into play by Eric Dyer. Cher again. Going as far as Perisic. Now Davis into Basuma. Bentancur looks to control it. And now Royale out to Matt Doherty. Royale looks to have moved into a three-man defence alongside Eric Dyer and Ben Davis. Bentancur forward, and it's going to come straight back to Royale. Newcastle just defended so well in the two banks of three with the forward line and the three of midfield, and of course the back four that has been so good this season. Now Dyer again. Forward for Harry Kane, but it hasn't reached him. It's come back to Emerson Royale. Bentancur to Harry Kane, who's dropped very deep into his own half, in fact. Now he's found Rodrigo Bentancur. Going forward, Doherty's on the overlap. It's a very heavy pass from Bentancur, and Doherty won't make it. And that was a real opportunity for Tottenham because Doherty was looking
It's kind of been
real.
indicative of Spurs' day, really. As a whole, of their performance. This is it all summed up in one move.
In fact, we're seeing a yellow card now for Nick Pope for taking his time over the taking of this goal kick. It's interesting that because I don't think I've ever seen a goalkeeper get a second yellow card for time wasting. So it'll be interesting to see how much more Nick Pope can get away with it if it is deemed to be time wasting. Eric Dyer back to Hugo Lloris, being closed down by Almiron. He finds Royale through the legs of Murphy, but he can't find Matt Doherty, and it's straight out for a throw in. That's more frustration for Tottenham with less than 6 minutes to go. But they've taken chances at the back today, Spurs.
Yeah, pretty careless again, and this has been the problem. There's been a lot of wayward passes all over the park throughout the game today. It's been, on the whole, another disappointing performance by Spurs today.
Joe Linton doing really well to keep the ball. Challenged by Lucas Moura. Wins the header. Now Jacob Murphy. Royale looked to play it back to Eric Dyer, but he had Almiron for company. Doherty now sweeps out to Ben Davis, and Tottenham will look to build down the left-hand side. Davis out to Ivan Perisic. Yves Bissouma cutting inside. Driving towards the halfway line. Giving it to Bentancur. Royale round the corner for Doherty. And again round the corner. Lucas Moura is onside. Gets the chip in. It's over Harry Kane looking for Perisic. It's headed away. Bissouma up in the air. Royale will let it come down and head it now to Bentancur. Eric Dyer. Out to Davis. Davis looked to get up and down that left-hand side with Perisic. It's a lovely spread of play to Lucas Moura, but he can't get past Murphy, and it's a corner kick for Tottenham. Not long left. Less than 5 minutes to go of normal time. Corner taken quickly. Heung-min Son. And again, it's gone out for another corner again. Jacob Murphy was alert to the situation. Heung-min Son out to this near side for an outswinging right foot corner. Plenty in the box. Tottenham got their goal through a corner. Can they get another one? The ball goes in. It's flicked away. It's flicked across the penalty area. It's come through to Perisic on the left-hand side. Doherty looking for the overlap. Perisic sends it in! And Eric Dyer heads just wide. In fact, he was offside anyway, but that was mightily close from Eric Dyer. And a let-off for Newcastle.
Yeah, it was offside anyway, but yeah, he had space there. It was a free header. So it was a little bit of a let-off for Newcastle, despite the fact that it was offside. But yeah, only just wide.
Clearly offside in the end. Eric Dyer, a good yard or two past the last defender. And Nick Pope will send this one forward, looking for Wilson. It's beyond him. Bentancur now. Doherty playing it to Davis. Has to be quick from Tottenham. Bissouma out to Ivan Perisic. But Kane ahead of him. Son as well, of course. Lucas Moura joining the attack. Ivan Perisic in towards Harry Kane with the header, and it's over the bar. And no trouble for Nick Pope. But that really, apart from the goal for Harry Kane, he has been starved of a lot of service today. We're just seeing two changes now for for Newcastle in the closing stages as they look to earn this famous away win. It'll be Callum Wilson. He'll be coming off for Chris Wood, the New Zealand international. Callum Wilson just having a little clash there with Eric Dyer because Eric Dyer wants him to go off on the far side on the touchline that he was closest to, as are the rules these days, or an optional rule. But to try and perhaps waste some time, Callum Wilson's come all the way across to the dugouts to high-five Chris Wood and maybe try and eat up a little bit of time. But I think the Tottenham players were saying there to Jared Gillett, you've got to add that time on, surely. And the second change will be John Joe Shelby coming on for Bruno Guimaraes.
Looks like he was trying to wind up Emerson Royale a little bit there, as well as waste some time. I think the referees do need to clamp down on this a little bit more, though.
The frustration's high from Tottenham, of course. You know, in this situation particularly, they had a massive chance to chop the lead to just 2 points to Arsenal at the top of the table today. But if anything, it looks like they're going to be dropping further behind their North London rivals. Bruno Guimaraes taking the acclaim from his Newcastle colleagues on the bench. 89.5 minutes gone, just a minute and a half to go until stoppage time. Still Tottenham 1, Newcastle United 0. You're listening to alternative commentary on the commentary hood of the Premier League. And now Tottenham will look to come forward again. Perisic, first time ball looking for Hyun-Min Son. He tried to let it run and were alive to the danger. And Chris Wood has got past Emerson Royale, and that might well be a yellow card for the wing-back. Indeed it is. And Chris Wood, he doesn't get many opportunities these days given the form of Callum Wilson. Of course, Alex Isak, the big money signing when he's available. But that was
Yeah, I mean,
really
he's not
good
got a
work
lot
from
of
Chris Wood to
goals.
come on and do a good job and win a free kick and alleviate the pressure.
Yeah, I think with Chris Wood, though, his situations, he's very much out of form anyway. He's only got 2 goals in 27 games. It hasn't worked out for him so far, really, at Newcastle. But we'll see
No, of
how
course.
it goes for him.
Of course, and he is very much, when all are fit and available, he is very much a third choice forward at Newcastle. Now, I mentioned Callum Wilson, of course, the goal scorer for the first goal today, but Alex Isak, the big money signing, made a good start to life at Newcastle. The goal in his debut against Liverpool and the goal against Bournemouth as well, but then injury is now ruling him out until after the 2022 World Cup in Qatar next month. It can be 5 minutes of added time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, so not done yet. Chances for Tottenham perhaps to get an equaliser here.
Yeah, definitely. There's still a chance for them, although they don't really look like it right now. But with 5 minutes left for the injury time, I think it's time I name the player of the match. And I am going to give it to Joel Linton today. He's been outstanding from start to finish and been a big part of the midfield for Newcastle today. Joel Linton, player of the match.
I was going to ask you for your player of the match, but I did have a feeling that Joel Linton will be very high on the list, if not the winner, and he has been fantastic in all of his roles for Tottenham today. On the left wing until about the hour mark, and then in midfield after Joe Willock was replaced by Jacob Murphy. Matt Doherty looking to play it in. It's cleared away. Tottenham have 4 minutes to claim a point here and completes a dramatic half. Emerson Royale forward to Hyun-Min Son, but again, it's another poor ball that goes all the way through to Nick Pope, who doesn't even bother picking it up and lets it run out for a goal kick. And it's good game management again from Newcastle, but poor decision-making from Tottenham Hotspur in crucial moments. And Antonio Conte will know that.
Yeah, the moves are breaking down. The attacking play is breaking down by not necessarily in the last sort of 20 minutes, not necessarily by great Newcastle defending, but just by simply playing bad balls and giving the ball away. And that's just another example right there.
Nick Pope will restart the play. Bentancur heads it forward. John Joe Shelby now looking for Chris Wood over the top. Eric Dyer will deal with it and give it back to Hugo Lloris. But Tottenham need to get the ball moving and need to get it to the other end of the pitch. Davis. Eric Dyer. Looking forward again. It's a poor ball straight to John Joe Shelby, who'll launch it. And it's become a case of anywhere will do now for Newcastle, all the way through to Hugo Lloris. Bentancur is just telling his goalkeeper to send it forward, and he does. It's flicked on. Harry Kane can't take it down. It's cleared away by Sven Botman. Perisic can't get past Trippier, who's gone down, and the referee looks like he's given a free kick to Newcastle, and indeed he has, for a foul by Ivan Perisic on Kieran Trippier, and more time gets eaten up. Perisic was poor control. I'm not sure how much of Kieran Trippier he actually made contact with, but it's, again, you talk about the game management. Kieran Trippier sensed a chance to win a free kick, and he did so. And Perisic, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, he definitely connected. I mean, it might have hurt. It was right on the leading edge of his boot, but yeah, the contact was made, and of course, down he's going to go with only 2 minutes of injury time left.
I think you can see that he worked under Diego Simeone, can't you?
Oh yeah,
the master of those kind of situations in terms of seeing out these narrow goal games. Of course, La Liga winner with Atletico Madrid, Kieran Trippier. But now Tottenham have it. Just over a minute and a half left to go at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Dyer has to send it long, looking for Doherty. It's headed away by Dan Burn, he's been brilliant today. Joe Linton will look to run the ball. It's gone straight out for a throw-in. Emerson Royale quick to look to get the play restarted. Bentancur sends it forward. He's not going to reach Heung-min Son. Headed away as far as Basuma. Still with Yves Basuma. It could come through to Son, but it's rolled through to Nick Pope, who dives on the ball and tries to eat up the time. And I think that's what Harry Kane's saying, but Nick Pope knows that Newcastle have very nearly seen this through now. Harry Kane saying to the referee, is this not time wasting again? But as I said earlier, how many times do you see a second bookable offence for a goalkeeper for time wasting? Nick Pope
you
plays
might argue
under
as well
again.
that he has a right to fall on it because it's wet conditions. He doesn't want to spill the ball.
Of course, any precautions taken, and there's only 30 seconds left to go. Bentancur, Tottenham need the ball up the other end of the pitch, which they're taking their time in doing. Playing it out to Davis, looking to play it through to Perisic, but it's really good defending from Trippier, who's been superb down that right-hand side for Newcastle today. And now Newcastle will look to run it, but that's really good defending in the end from Bentancur to stop Almiron in his tracks. It's 10 seconds to go. Newcastle on the brink of a famous win. It's cleared away by Joel Linton. Really good strength from Jacob Murphy to win the ball, but Lucas Moura gives away a free kick, and I think that is going to be it for Tottenham today. They went 2-0 down in the first half and just never really looked like recovering. Antonio Conte looks resigned on the touchline. Eddie Howe, rather calm on the outside, but you can imagine he'll be buzzing on the inside. And now he's buzzing on the outside because the final whistle has blown. Newcastle Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Eddie Howe's revival of this Newcastle United team is going from strength to strength. First half goals from first Callum Wilson, a delicate lob from 30 yards out with Hugo Lloris out of his goal, set Newcastle on their way before Miguel Almiron scored a brilliant individual goal to make it 2-0 5 minutes before the break. Harry Kane got Tottenham back into the contest early on in the second half, just 10 minutes or so into the contest after the break when he headed in from close range following a corner. But Newcastle's game management after that was superb to see out the game. See out this famous win that takes them up to 4th place in the Premier League. What a start to them it's been this season. 21 points after 12 games. Fantastic start for Newcastle. Only one defeat in that run as well. And Paul, they very much deserved it, didn't they?
They did, absolutely. They were excellent. Despite a shaky start, they grew into the game. They controlled the midfield, and they really made it very difficult for Spurs to create anything. Spurs, perhaps the architects as well, a little bit of their downfall themselves with some poor defending. in the second half, when Spurs did try to get back into the game a little bit, they were obviously giving up some poor passes. But overall, Newcastle absolutely deserve it, and their fans can make the long trip back to the northeast very happy in knowing that they are now in the top 4.
And those fans have just been applauding Callum Wilson, who goes over and takes the congratulations for his opener in the game. We're seeing there as well Sven Botman and Fabian Schär getting involved as well. The two have been fantastic this season for Newcastle United. It's a fantastic partnership at the back for the rejuvenated and revived Toon Army. A fantastic result for them that, as I say, takes them into the top 4 of the Premier League, into the 4th Champions League spot. Just 2 points behind Tottenham now. And Spurs failed to close the gap on their North London rivals, Tottenham, who now have a 5-point lead over Spurs in first place. Spurs also missing the chance to close the gap on Manchester City in second. But a deserved win for Newcastle and North London, and has finished at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2.
Thank you very much there to Chris Coughlin and Paul James. A very big well done for match commentary. Fantastic work from you both. Been a while since we had Chris on, so fantastic stuff there, my friend. Always good to have you as part of the channel, as it is with Paul as well. We'll get into some of the comments from Mike in the chat in a few moments' time, but let's run you through the other scores from today in the Premier League. Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0. Leeds United 2, Fulham 3. Southampton 1, Arsenal 1. Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Leicester City 4. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. In the Championship, Swansea City 2, Cardiff 0. Watford 4, Luton Town 0. Premier League 2, which is the under-21s, Newcastle United 3, Southampton 2. Stoke City 2, Sunderland 3. In the Women's Super League, Liverpool 0, Arsenal 2. Leicester City 0, Manchester United 1. West Ham United 3, Reading 2. Brighton v Chelsea, evening kickoff at 6:45. In the Women's Championship, Birmingham against Durham, match postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. Sunderland 0, London City Lionesses 2. Blackburn Rovers 3, Coventry United 2. Lewes 2, Charlton 1. Sheffield United 0, Southampton 1. Bristol City 3, Crystal Palace 0. In the under-17 qualification first round, first stage of that is currently finished. Sweden 3, Wales 3, Croatia 1, Albania 0, Ireland 2, Belarus 2, Austria 0, Montenegro 1, Poland 6, Andorra 1, and on 72 minutes is Norway 6, Armenia 0. In the French League, Angers 1, Rennes 2, Clermont 1, Brest 3, Reims 2, Auxerre 1, Toulouse 2, Strasbourg 2, Troyes 2, Lorient 2, Nice 1, Nantes 1. Evening kickoff at 7:45 is Lille against Monaco. In the German Bundesliga, Bochum 2, Union Berlin 1, Hertha Berlin 2, Schalke 1. Italian Serie A, Udinese 1, Torino 2, Bologna 2, Lecce 0. 72 minutes gone, it's Atalanta United 0, Lazio 2. Evening kickoff is Roma against Napoli at 7:45. In the Dutch Eredivisie, Excelsior 2, is at Alkmaar 1, Camber 0, FC Twente 1. Groningen 4, PSV Eindhoven 2. Nimgen 3, Go Ahead Eagles 3. Utrecht 3, Sparta Rotterdam 1. FC Volendam versus Herenveen is an evening kickoff at 7 o'clock. In the Liga Portugal, Maritimo 1, Aruca 1. Vizela 0, Santa Clara 1. 29 minutes, Scottish Chavers 0, Gil Vicente 1. And at 8:30 in the evening kickoff is Guimarães against Boavista. In Spain's La Liga, to tell you about, it finished Espanyol 2, Elche 2, Betis 1, Atletico Madrid 2, Girona 1, Osasuna 1, Villarreal 0, Almeria 1. There at half time, Girona against Osasuna and Villarreal against Almeria. There's an evening kickoff at 8 o'clock between Barcelona and Athletic Club. In the MLS, after 14 minutes in the MLS playoffs, it's CF Montreal 0, New York City 1 is the latest score after 15 minutes. We'll bring you the thoughts in a second of Paul James, but let's just read out some of the comments from Mike through the afternoon. He says he was hopeful that Newcastle were able to hang on, either add to the scoreline or add on, hang on to it, which they did. He says, always sounds bitter when the commentators say that Spurs have been disappointing. Nice to see they've gone. Spurs, as some fans say, they've gone so early in the season. He goes on to say, Wilson going off at the furthest point is the kind of thing you love to see when it's for your team. When it's against you, it's the kind of thing that really frustrates and winds you up. He says, Tottenham losing when we, Arsenal, fail to pick up all 3 points, always cheese him up. And he says, great job to both Chris and to Paul. I'm going to disagree on that comment. Mike says Jesse Marsh in, I want Marsh out, and that's going to be for a completely different video. He says, he also says, nice to see Luton thumped. He also says, good win for Arsenal women too. He says, yeah, I hope the referee in our game gets sacked. So biased in Southampton's favour, and no wonder they've never lost a game with him reffing. He says, but yeah, the standard of refereeing in this country is ridiculously bad. But he was the same in the Stevenage game too. It was also shocking. So that's the thoughts of Mike Ornament there. And my comments on Jesse Marsh is going to be for an entirely different video, because I don't think Chris and Paul and all our listeners have got till 9 o'clock this evening to hear my rant. So I'll probably record that a bit later on and publish that out probably over the weekend, later tonight, early tomorrow, starting next week. But let's fetch in your co-commentator, Paul James. And fantastic win for Newcastle today, Paul. I think Newcastle did what they and deservedly so got the win. Tottenham did try and get that equaliser, but it wasn't enough in the end. For you then, Paul, looking at that, if you're in Antonio Conte's shoes, how would you be feeling right now? Because for me, I think Conte would be pulling his hair out in the dressing room after that performance.
Yeah, there was just too many giveaways. There were, although I think Newcastle were outstanding and they thoroughly deserved their win. I've no doubt about that. I don't think it was entirely though that it wasn't as if Tottenham was overwhelmed by a better team. It was simply the fact that they gave up. The defending was poor. They when going forward, they gave away the ball far too many times. Promising attacks were broken down by simple errors. And I think in a lot of cases that was the reason, part of the reason at least for Spurs' downfall. Newcastle were outstanding though, thoroughly deserved the victory.
Yes, obviously they say Newcastle deserved the victory. And quite rightly, they did. Fantastic game plan from Eddie Howe, even after Tottenham pulling that goal back, which you both touched upon in the commentary as well today, Paul. And as Chris was saying just as before he handed back to me, Newcastle now up to fourth, 2 points behind Tottenham and just 5 points behind Manchester City, 7 points behind the league leaders Arsenal, who, despite only joining early today, remain top of the table. Fulham up to seventh after their win over Leeds United earlier today, gone 2 points above Liverpool, who Leeds have next. Aston Villa, who were down in the relegation zone, Same with Leicester in and around the relegation zone before their wins today and moved up to 14th and 16th respectively. Leeds, who are outside the relegation zone, have dropped in to the relegation zone. We'll touch on Leeds in a bit more detail a bit later on when out which Chrising on to that situation there. But Newcastle, since when Eddie Howe came in, and if you were to say he would have kept him up last season, finished round about top half, I think is where they finished last season. Come the end of it, in the end, which just missed out on the top half by a couple of points last season, and now after just 11, 12 matches for Newcastle, 11 for some of the other clubs in and around them, to be sat in fourth place, 2 point level on points with Chelsea, above Chelsea on goal difference and a point above Manchester United. I think if you offer that to Newcastle fans, say this time last year when they were struggling down in the bottom of the table, I think some Newcastle fans would have been their hand off. And fair play to Eddie Harris, come in with a direct idea and a direction, a suitable game plan. Yes, he'll change his game plan for each and every team he comes up against, but to get his players playing the way he has, and for some of the signings that fetched in, it's good management from Eddie Howe, isn't it, really, Paul? For where Newcastle were when he came in to where they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my firm belief that Newcastle would have been relegated last season if they would have stuck with Steve Bruce. If you look at a Newcastle performance under Steve Bruce, with the style of play that he was playing versus looking at this Newcastle team right now and the work that Eddie Howe has done, the amazing work that this manager has done, it's like going from night to day. It's a completely different team. It's a completely different attitude by the players. Joel, I think me and Chris talked about it during the game. Joel Linton has just been a completely changed player under Eddie Howe. Playing in that midfield, he's been absolutely outstanding. I gave him player of the match today because I think he thoroughly deserved it. Was spearheading that Newcastle midfield, in my opinion. But yes, this is a very, very good team under Eddie Howe right now. And well, they have Villa at home next, and then Southampton away before, of course, the League Cup tie with Crystal Palace at home. So the two more winnable games there that can help cement their position in that top four.
Yes, and then if you look at after that Crystal Palace game, they've then got Chelsea before the World Cup, which is going to be a tricky one where Chelsea have been playing so far. And then when they return on Boxing Day, they've got Leicester, then they've got Leeds, and then to start off the new year, they go to the Emirates Stadium. And I think looking at what the games that they've got coming up, I think there's probably going to be two tough tests in that set of fixtures we've just mentioned there. So Villa, Southampton, Palace in the Cup, Chelsea, Leicester, Leeds, Arsenal. And I think the two teams which are probably going to be a tough test for Eddie Howe, and if he's already passed this, which I would have said was a tough test as well, the other two tough tests he's got coming up for me is the game against Chelsea at St James's Park and the game at the Emirates against Arsenal. And if they can come through those two games, say take a point, say a win at home against Chelsea and a point at the Emirates, and pick up the wins in the other matches, minus the EF, minus the cup game against Crystal Palace, you'd think if Newcastle was probably still be in the top four by then, you'd think that would be a good points return for Eddie Howe going well, especially if he wins the Chelsea game going into the World Cup, wins the next three after winning this one today. I think that'd be good enough points to try and persuade players to come and join them in January transfer window to try and push them on that even bit further. Wouldn't you agree there, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. If Newcastle are in or around the top four at Christmas, players are looking to play in the Champions League. So, if you've got a club that is in or around Champions League position, it could very well tempt big name players to your squad. Because let's face it, Newcastle have the money. What's stopping them really is the chance of playing in the Champions League, the possible success, trophies that players want to win, despite the amount of money that Newcastle have. But if they're in and around the top four, that could well attract some pretty big names to St James's Park.
Yes, and just before we fetch Chris back in and touch on some of the other day's action from earlier on today, Paul, if you're in Antonio Conte's shoes with the after the set of games that they've just had, including this Newcastle game, so the previous, so the last few games for Tottenham, and I'll tell you how they've gone on in each of the what games that Tottenham have played going into before and including today's game against Newcastle. I'll just tell you the results that they've had. So they've, as we know, they've lost today 2-1 to Newcastle. In midweek, they lost 2-0 to Manchester United, which you did, Paul. They then beat Everton 2-0. They're winning the Champions League against Frankfurt. They beat Brighton, drew with Frankfurt, lost to Arsenal, beat Leicester. So in the Premier League, they beat Leicester, lost to Arsenal, beat Brighton, beat Everton, lost to Man United, and lost to Newcastle in their last 6. And yeah, you can say Leicester, winnable game for them. Arsenal, form goes out the window when it's North London derbies. Brighton, under a new manager, and the MX are the best times, all place to go. Home form's not look quite good. Beat Everton, Van Lampard doing okay with them this season compared to how they finished towards back end of last season. Man United have been a hit and miss this season already, coming into a bit of form themselves. And then Newcastle, we just touched on them. If you were, if you were to say to Tottenham fans after that game, you'd have a win against Leicester and a win against Everton after those last few matches in the Premier League, and you'd win Leicester, win Brighton, win Everton, and lose to Man United, Arsenal, and Newcastle with the way Newcastle are playing. I think some Tottenham fans would have said that'd be a reasonable thing, but some fans may think Newcastle should be winning teams like Newcastle. But what do you make to that if you was in Antonio Conte's shoes? What would you be saying to your players after that defeat today, Paul?
Well, I'd be certainly looking at the errors going forward, the giveaways, the sloppy defensive play. I would be looking at those and saying that we're giving points away by and we're giving these points away. They're not being taken from us. We're giving them away by not creating, not playing the right ball, playing wayward passes, sloppy defending. You know, I mean, the second goal, as good as a finish as it actually was, Sessegnon is half asleep, and then he's cutting inside the penalty area, and there's just nobody's getting close enough to Almiron. Now, I want to say that Almiron has been extremely impressive this season, the best I've ever seen him in the Premier League. So, honestly, if I was in Conte's position, I would be focusing on these errors. I would be focusing defensively on correcting some of those problems more than anything else. Like most of the attacks in the second half for Spurs broke down because of silly mistakes.
Yes, and if you look at it as well, and Mike's just put a very good point in here as well, with regards to what I've just mentioned for Tottenham's last 6, and then we'll move on to some of the other games taking place there before we move off air at 7 o'clock this evening. He says, very up and down there for Tottenham in the last 6. Well, that says everything really in his opinion. Not consistent at all, and that will be their downfall. He says, the defeats they've got are against teams who will be in the European mix, which is for them a big worry. He says he's not sure we could say that about the North London derby. He says Arsenal could have won that 6-7, but generally my winner said form normally goes out of the window in the derby. Yes, it does. I think also if when you look at him, Mike, potentially I'm not saying he did because I didn't really see the game in full, so he's out to another match on that same day. Potentially you could say the red card for in that game for Emerson potentially changed the complexion of the game, so to speak. But things are doing okay there. So we're going to leave the Tottenham and that chat for now. Paul will probably come back to that just a bit later on, but I'm just going to fetch Chris back in here now. And and touch upon a couple of the other games. Looking at the Leeds game in particular, Leeds to the lead early on. Fulham equalised, poor defending on all three of the goals for Fulham by Leeds United. Today, Leeds now no wins in the last 8 games in the Premier League, only 2 points from 24 in his last 8. That's including today. Leeds have lost to Fulham, Leicester, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Brighton, and then 2 draws against Everton and Aston Villa. And with the run of form, with the first 11 games that we've had Wolves, Southampton, Chelsea, Brighton, Everton, Brentford, Villa, Palace, Arsenal, Leicester, Fulham. Out of those 11 games there, and to say we've only got 2 wins, and 2 of those wins have come against teams that have changed the managers. The teams that at least should be picking up points in Southampton or beating Southampton, Brighton, Everton, Brentford, Villa, Palace, Leicester, Fulham, who teams are going to be in and around the bottom half of the table come the end of the season, in my personal opinion. Leeds have not won, and the cries today for to start the board, start Jesse Marsh as well. With that, Chris, with those games I've just mentioned, then as 2 wins have come against Chelsea, who changed the manager, and also Wolves, who were struggling as well and changed their manager as well. And at the moment, I can't see where the next win's going to come from for Leeds United. And that's me just being honest. And I'll do a full piece on this later on the channel. Where do you think the problem lies? Do you think it's with the ball not getting a left back and a striker, which Leeds fans have called for since last season? Or do you think it's something to do with the tactics with Jesse Marsh?
It's very interesting because Leeds have a lot of good players. A lot of good players indeed, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out so far this season. I liked, parts, or I certainly like the start of the season from Leeds. Of course, that 3-0 win over Chelsea set a standard that they haven't lived up to for the rest of this campaign so far. And of course, we see when things don't work out a lot of the time. Of course, it's the manager that pays for it. We saw that with Aston Villa. And they were brilliant today. They were absolutely brilliant. I think we all kind of suspect a managerial bounce or when a change of manager happens in a bad situation, as has happened at Aston Villa. Frustrating for Steven Gerrard because he did a great job at Rangers. Admittedly, I do think that he could have done more in terms of winning cups at Rangers, but ultimately you decided to take the jump to Aston Villa, which is a very big gig. It's a very big gig looking to revive a club like them. But of course, it couldn't have been a better response from Thursday night for Aston Villa. 3-0 up inside 14 minutes, 4-0 win against a very good Brentford side that hadn't conceded against either Brighton or Chelsea. So it's a very, very, very good result indeed for Aston Villa. As for Wolves, I mean, if you look at the stats, it's gone quite viral today, the stats for Wolves against Leicester, because Leicester only had 5 shots in the entire game and scored 4 goals. So, of course, I'll need to see the highlights in detail, but whether that's clinical finishing or whatever, it's incredible. And Wolves having 21 shots, 61% possession and 5 on target and not scoring any goals. It's remarkable, really, reading when you look at that. But a massive win for Leicester to drag themselves out of the bottom 3 as well. And then finally Arsenal. It's got to be seen as points drops for me because that first half they were really, really good against Southampton. There was the authority, there was the arrogance, there was the confidence that you saw from Arsenal that you've seen from them so far this season. But Southampton just took a bit of a stranglehold in the final parts of the game and got a deserved equaliser. And it'd be very interesting to see how Arsenal kind of respond to that, because I think you look at a lot of the teams and we were kind of maybe looking, would Arsenal slip up? Will there be that moment where City can kind of jump on them? Because I think for a lot of people, Manchester City is still very much the favourites to win the Premier League title. But is this now the start of a bit of frustration for Arsenal. They've got Nottingham Forest at home next week, which I very much expect them to win, and then 2 very big away games before the World Cup against Chelsea and against Wolves. So very interesting to see how Mikel Arteta's side react to that.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. And you mentioned about with Leicester having 5 shots and 4 of them on target, which were all the 4 goals. In the Leeds game today, Leeds had 14 shots, only 5 of them on target, and we scored 2 of them.
Mm,
And
mm, mm.
we didn't, for me, so I watched this game before presenting this today, and for me, I watched that game, and we didn't really trouble Bern Leno quite a bit in the Fulham goal. It was a relatively easy afternoon for him, and two of the best players, well, 3 of the best players for me on that pitch for Leeds today was the 3 that brought in this summer by Jesse Marsh. Brendan Aronson, we all know what he can do from playing for the USA as well. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the World Cup, but not against England. Also, Mo Rocker, another good talented player. You wouldn't be a Bayern Munich if he wasn't a good player. And then Luis Sinisterra, you wouldn't be, like I said, you wouldn't be a Feyenoord, a top Dutch club if you weren't a good player. And those 3 really stood out for me today. And the Rodrigo's a bit hit and miss. Yes, he got the goal, but there were times where he could have had another shot where he laid it back off to a teammate. So there's big troubles then, and there was substitution late on, which didn't got me thinking, why has he done that? He fetches on a striker in Joe Gellar and takes off as left back.
It's a very interesting one, that I think it's for a manager under pressure as well. You know, those kind of decisions might come into the whole pressure of the situation. As you've said, if his own signings could be working out, then by all means, Jesse Marsh is going to get a bit of time. Of course, it's an interesting game next week at Anfield. Liverpool looking to bounce back from their awful defeat at Nottingham Forest, it has to be said, and then Leeds have got tough games going up to the World Cup as well. Bournemouth, Ellen Road, Wolves away in the Cup, and Tottenham away in the Premier League. So a very tough run for Leeds up until the World Cup. But it's an interesting situation for Jesse Marsh right now.
It is, Chris, and I can't see if I'm being honest, I can't see where the next win's going to come from. Maybe in the Cup, maybe, but in the league, I'm not sure where the next win's going to come from. Thank you very much there for Chris. Chris has got to go now, so thank you for your contribution today, Chris. Fantastic work, and we'll hopefully get you back on the channel very, very soon.
Cheers, guys.
No problem, Chris. And then we'll just fetch Paul back in on the Leeds United situation there, which I've just been touching on with Chris there, Paul. As you heard me, only 2 wins all season, and at the time both of those teams that we played against was in a relegation, was in a bad run of form themselves at the time. Wolves not really done much towards back end of last season, so in a bad run of form. Beat them on opening day. Beat Chelsea. They were going through a tough run at that point, and then they both had the managers, and that's the only 2 wins that Leeds have got. And then I mentioned about the games where I think we should have picked up points. Southampton, we drew. Brighton, we lost. Everton, we drew. Brentford, we lost. Aston Villa, we drew and got a player sent off. Palace, we lost that one. Lost against Leicester, who were bottom of the league at the time. And then we've lost again today to Fulham. 2 points in his last out of a possible 24. As I mentioned earlier on before we went on air, his relegation form. And Mike, you're quite right. I am worried about Leeds at the moment with the form about staying up. And that. And then Sinistera, for me, Mike, and I'll come on to you in a minute, Paul, on Sinistera as well. For me, Sinistera is basically last season's Rafinha. We were relying on him too much, relying on him to create things. And when he's not creating any things, no one else is able to create things. So for me, I think trying to pick up the wins by trying to get Sinister onto the ball and create quite a lot when it's not really happening. Whereas under Rafinha, when he was at Leeds last season, it was happening, but this season, for some whatever reason, he's not seemed to be working. And as I mentioned to Chris, as you probably heard there, Paul, as well, three of our best players on the field today were three of Jesse Marshall's signings in Brendan Aronson, Mo Rocker, and Luis Sinisterra. Some of his in-game management with his substitutions and everything didn't work. And as I mentioned to you and Chris off air before we started as well, the third goal went in for Fulham on 84 minutes with 6 minutes left to play. You would expect your manager to be shouting other players to get him fed up, try and go on and get two late goals to get an equaliser. Marsh, arms up in the air, looked up to the sky, as you say, what's happening here? Then arms straight in his pocket and just walking around technical area and then just sat back down. He looked like a man who knows his job is on the line and could be getting sacked very soon. We'll come to you in a second, Paul. I will come to you. I've just seen some thoughts here from Mike. He says, he really had the looks of Sinisterra last week, thought he was very dangerous. It was Mike. And also he says he thought Leeds should have picked up a result last week with the way we played and played really well. And we were lucky not to get to a result or won against Arsenal last week, and we was. And for seeing us play like we did against Arsenal last week, and then play like we have for the past couple of matches against Leicester, we had a little bit of spell at the start, then nothing after that. Today against Fulham, we had a spell at the beginning of the game, first 5-10 minutes. Then we got the goal. Then Fulham on top. We got the goal against the winner play. Fulham then scored. It then went flat till half time. We had probably, I would say, about 5 minutes in the start of the second half. And then it just went off. Fulham just completely dominated after that. Got no complaints with the result today. We're poor. For me, it seems like we can play like we did against Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, so Tottenham, so-called Big Six. Play really, really well and either get a result like we did against Chelsea or be unlucky and just lose out by the narrow goal. Is when we come up against the teams we expected to win, we always seem to fail. And it was either under Bielsa, he's either under Marshall at the moment as well. I want to ask you a question now, Paul, and I'm sorry for keeping you waiting there while I just answered a few questions there and give some of my thoughts before I do a longer piece probably later today or tomorrow on the Leeds United situation. With Leeds United, no wins in the last 8, only 2 draws. For you, is it down to the board for not investing in a left back and a striker, which, as I said to Chris, Leeds fans have seen that we needed them for the last 2 transfer windows, maybe in the last 3 transfer windows, and then, or is it partly to the board, partly to the manager, and the players, or do you think he's just on the manager, just on the players, just on the board? Where do you think the problem's lie? Because Marsh came out in the summer and said, we need a left back, we need a striker. The board didn't go and get him those. So do you think the problems, because if we'd got a striker, for me, Paul, personally, I think we wouldn't be rushing Bamford back and wouldn't be having to manage Bamford. We'd be able to let Bamford get fully fit, get a striker who can play the similar sort of style to Patrick Bamford. Say like a Danny Ings, for example. And then we would have to rush him back. Or do you think it's all on Jesse Marshall, all on the players, or all on the board, or do you think it's a bit of on all 3 the problems of Leeds United from an outsider looking in?
Well, in the modern game, it's not just the manager that goes out and signs players. Often there's recruitment teams, there's the directors get involved, the board get involved, all this kind of stuff. They all get involved. So it's hard to pin the blame down on one entity here. Like, it's hard to blame just Jesse Marsh or the board or whatever. I do think one of Leeds' biggest issues this season is that they have failed to adequately replace Rafinha. The effect that Rafinha had for Leeds United last season was one of the main reasons that they beat the drop. I think it's very difficult because every team that isn't within sort of the top sort of 6 big clubs, 7, you could include Newcastle in that now. Outside of that, everyone starts a season with a realistic expectation that they could go down. So teams have to get it right. But Jesse Marsh has been there less than a year. It's insanity. It's been there less than a year. It's. I find it very hard to justify the firing of a manager who's not even been given a full season. Having said that, I do understand that this is the way the modern game is now. And prefacing what I just said, that anybody sort of outside the top 7 can expect to get relegated or be a threat to get relegated, I should say. Teams have to get it right, and there's not a lot of window for patience, unfortunately. But I think the blame lays sort of within the 3 entities of the player, the manager, and the board. I wouldn't pick out a single entity to hold firmly responsible for this, but you know football as well as I do, Ross. The one man that is going to be held as responsible is Jesse Marsh.
Yes, absolutely, Paul. And Mike says 2 big losses with him and Calvin Phillips on about Rafinha there, Paul, as you were just mentioning then. I'm just going to read some more of the quotes that Leeds United commentator Adam Pope put out earlier on this afternoon. I'll read you those in a second. Just going to load it, get it up on my phone here now, just to go through some of the some of the response from Jesse Marsh after the 3-2 defeat to Fulham, and I'll bring up a stat in a minute as well. First of all, he was speaking to BBC Radio 5 Live, and he says, "Understand their fans' anger is directed at me. My focus is on trying to improve the team. I have said in the club we are unified together." He says he has spoken to the board and they are backing him. He says we are together in that. He says he takes responsibility. He says I understand the frustration from the fans. We're doing everything we can. We are unified. The players have been great. And no, it hasn't been easy for them, should I say. He says we believe in them. The board and I are unified. I am looking directly at myself. As I mentioned, he looked to beat a man. Looked like a man who was about to be sacked during the game today. He says, we are finding ways to lose. Every game is in the balance, which I agree was 1-1 at half time. It was in the balance, could go either way. And then Leeds have found a way out to lose that game, not going to win it. Marshall said he's not going to blame the board for not signing a striker, which Marshall said in the summer transfer window that he wanted to sign a striker. He said, I'm not going to stop playing hindsight or throw anyone under the bus. He also says on why Leeds are in a similar relegation trouble as we were last season. He says, having sold Calvin, on by Calvin Phillips, and Rafinha, we knew it was going to be a new project by rebuilding with new players. Marsh believes he's still the right man for the job. He believes he has the inside, he has the ideas to turn this around. He feels every one of these last 8 games have been in the balance and his fine margins, letting Leeds United down. I disagree with that, and you'll hear my points tomorrow. Probably tomorrow now. He says it's my job to help the team turn results so the fans turn their opinion. They are frustrated by the fact we can't get results. And not only that, Jesse, is about the performances and the manner of the defeats that we've been getting, which is why the fans have been like, they are my friend. And he said, which is why I'm seeing a couple of comments here, which we'll finish off in a second. Mike says, great way from all 3 of us today. Thank you very much. If you want to go and listen to Mike, by the way, guys, head on over to stormfm.org.uk and you can hear Mike live on the radio playing music till 10 o'clock when they'll have DJ Lazy B on air from 10 until 1, taking you through till Monday, the sweet wee small hours until 1 a.m. Monday morning in the UK. So that's Mike on from now until 10. And then from 10 until 1, it's LB over on Storm FM on stormfm.org.uk, but only on Storm FM on the YouTube. We'll just quickly just round up with this game today. Thank you to Chris and to Paul for excellent coverage today on Tottenham Hotspur 1, Newcastle United 2. Newcastle up into the fourth in the Premier League table above Chelsea on goal difference. There was defeats for Brentford, Leeds and Wolves elsewhere. Southampton also with a draw in the Premier League. So just to round off with the Premier League results from today once again, just to let people know how the Premier League have got on today in the matches. If you want to find out some of the scores from the matches, which were latest scores when I gave them to you, or the games playing later on, listen to your local radio stations. They may probably have those for you. But in the Premier League, just one final thing from today in the Premier League, the results for you again. It's Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0, Leeds United 2, Fulham 3, Southampton 1, Arsenal 1, Wolves 0, Leicester 4, Tottenham 1, Newcastle 2. All the results in the Premier League. From myself, Chris, and from Paul, a very good evening to you all.